At a minute, you can see your cell phones are off. We're on vibrate, and council, ensure your microphones are turned on.
That was that roundabout I wanted. How do I found that? Big roundabout email. No, the old super.
Going for his time. Robin Williams.
Are we up?
Already. It's all here. That big packet.
All right, good evening, everybody. Today's September 3rd, 2024. Today's a Committee of the Whole meeting for Barberton City Council. Before we begin the Committee of the Whole meeting, we do have a long list of committee meetings. Just note, we will be having all committees meet tonight to reset the agenda, and then next week we'll begin the normal schedule. So first up is Street, Sidewalk, and Lighting with Mrs. Beck.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, I'd like to call the Street, Sidewalks, and Lighting Committee to order. It is Tuesday, September 3rd at 6 o'clock. We are in council chambers. All of my committee members are present, and the rest of council and guests noted on my sheet. Tonight we have one request for legislation, a letter from Monty Harris, Ward 6 councilperson, requiring restoration of all city-caused street cutouts within 72 hours. Emergency wording and one reading is requested. So I'd like to ask Monty, Councilperson Harris, to kind of talk to us a little bit about what he's thinking on this. My two questions for you to start with are, do you mean all current cutouts within 72 hours,
Yes.
which there's quite a few of them, and then moving forward, is it within 72 hours of them being?
Yes.
Okay.
We have an inordinate amount of cutouts within the city, in excess of 90. Some of the ones I've checked on, there's not even a record of them because it's been so long since they've been touched. And I think we can do better. Excuse me.
So, is Todd, I wanted to talk to Todd really quick. Do we have any sort of idea of what that would actually cost us to fix over 100 cutouts that we currently have now within that 72 hour? What kind of manpower, overtime, would we need to hire people?
So, I mean, we can average the putting down, so one hot box can do approximately 8 ton a day. Each cutout, just as we say on average, each cutout requires 2 ton of asphalt. I mean, you're talking, and it's probably not 2 ton, it's probably a ton of asphalt. So you're talking maybe 8 cutouts. And again, but that's a crew of 4, well, 2 crews of 4 to be honest with you, because you got a crew going ahead digging out, prepping, and then you have a crew coming behind, laying asphalt down, rolling, and then moving on to the next cleanup, moving on to the next one. So I mean, it's asphalt's $94 a ton. So times 8. And I mean, so you can do that in a day. But now that's also assuming that the crew has nothing else to do, that we can just put a crew on asphalt cutouts daily. But with that department, I mean, they maintain water services, water mains, sewers. They are in and out of houses with customer service, maintaining water meters and that kind of thing. It's not that any of this is neglected. It's that there's a priority list of things to do. And if a water break comes in, that's going to take priority over fixing a water break cutout. I mean, you can throttle the main down, but I can't imagine that we're going to want to throttle mains down to continue to fix cutouts over repairing and restoring water systems.
Why have we neglected to fill some of these in that, I know there's 2 or 3 that I've seen that have grass growing out of them.
So, I mean, I wouldn't say that they were neglected. Now, I mean, they may have been overlooked. I have a hard time believing that they're overlooked. I have a feeling they're on a list somewhere. Again, they will prioritize and they try to do things geographically rather than, by the date. So, I mean, if there's 6 in one area, they're going to try to tackle those first. I mean, I don't know. You have to give me some examples of where.
Well, I know there's one on 35th Street Southwest that's been like that for at least 2 years. And I inquired about it.
It's in the roadway?
It's on the side of the road. It's right at someone's driveway.
Okay.
It's been like that for at least 2 years. I know I don't know if you want to call it 2. There's one on Prospect that has grass growing out of it. There's grass growing out of the one on 35th Street. I've talked to Matt about him. He couldn't even, the one on 35th Street, he had no record of it. Of course, I know he's new, so.
So again, those have been tracked. So as far as I know, since 2020, every cutout that has been dug in the city of Barberton should have been tracked in our dashboard and distribution collection. There should be a record of that. It may be in one of the previous years.
And that could have been it. I mean, it was probably before his time.
So, but one of the things when I was down there, so I spent 2 years in that department, I tried to instill in Mike Jackson, who manages the dashboard, to always pull the previous year's cutouts from, so 21 moving to 22 if they weren't complete. If that didn't happen, if you overlooked them, I mean, again, a report should remedy that. So if somebody reports that, it should get added and we should take care of it.
Right.
The other thing would be, was it ours or was it the gas company that dug it up? I mean, do we know for sure that it was a water main break?
Yes.
So then, again, it should be somewhere, and if it wasn't,
I would hope.
we should remedy it.
My concern is the fact that I watch Enbridge cut out a piece of the road, do their repairs, compact whatever they need to compact in there and repave it, and it's actually better than probably what the street is. So I think we need to do better.
So, I have just some more questions for you. I'm not sure if this money is in the budget, and if it's not in the budget, I'm not sure where.
Well, I know where we can get $131,000 at. Huh?
Meaning,
Well, we can take it from the roundabout engineering plan.
that was a grant, wasn't it?
Excuse me?
Isn't that a grant?
No,
No, it wasn't. I'm
That was
sorry.
money that would have came
No,
from
it was.
our budget.
You're right. But then also, let's say we don't get this done in 72 hours, what's the enforcement on that? Like, what does it look
Well,
like
if it's
we
not done
fail?
in 72 hours, then at least the chair of safety and streets should be notified via email.
Okay. Then what? Then
We'll go from there.
Then what, it's kind of, and I don't mean that to be like, and then.
Well, I mean, we can
you know.
inquire as to why it's not being done.
So.
I mean, I'm sure there's some standards out there. I think Mr. Greer had mentioned something about some standards and operating procedures of some sort from state of Virginia, maybe?
Yes, Ms. Beck, so I guess, so my other question would be, so from approximately November through, I'm gonna say March, the asphalt plant doesn't,
Right.
they're not making asphalt. The majority of the water main cutouts are created in those months.
Right.
So when it hits April and the plant opens and we've got 40 cutouts, at that point in time, I mean, what is your thought? I mean, because now do we focus on the ones that occur on the daily to stay in that 72-hour and neglect the 40 that occur?
Well,
in
no,
the
we
winter?
should get
Or-
back to those 40 and get those done.
Which, I mean, so again, though, I don't feel like it's not that we are deliberately saying, oh, we don't want to do this cutout on this road at this time, which is the way that you're implying that it sounds, that we're just sweeping.
I'm not
some of them.
implying that, but I will say that we've neglected to fill in those cutouts I mean, I've seen, like I said, the two examples, the cutouts have been there forever. When you have grass growing out of them, I mean, how's that look on us? How's that look as a city?
Did you contact anyone in administration about that, or just Matt?
I've talked to Matt about it.
So just Matt?
And did Matt provide a remedy?
We kind of talked about Stratford specifically, but then I did ask about how many cutouts we had, and I asked him to inquire as to, the one on 35th, was there a record of it? And I let him know that.
Jennifer?
I let him know that that cutout had existed for a while. I mean, even like on Hardin, I know the water main broke there. They repaved that, had to replace some concrete there. And then the sewer broke or something, and some of the streets, sunk in and stuff like that. And that's a cutout that's obviously going to need to be replaced.
Jennifer, did you have something you wanted to add?
I just wanted to add, I think we just need to city needs to do its very best, and I understand we're on a limited budget, we have limited workers in, the street department, but like, I know for me, in my ward, there's one on Fairview where there was a water main break, and there's still 2 cones sitting in the middle of the road because there's a dip and a bump and everything, and it's been there for probably going on 3 months now. And I haven't reported it yet because I'm patiently waiting, because I know, we've got a very small team of men working. But my big one is the one in front of Chase Bank on 5th Street. I mean, that thing is atrocious. And it's going to turn into an accident if it does not get fixed. Because it's getting to the point where if I owned a Corvette or a low profile car, I would not go anywhere near it because it dips and you're gonna bottom out your car. And cars, when you go through that intersection, if you're going north on 5th Street, people are veering to miss it, and they're veering into the turn only lane, but then going straight because it's getting that bad. And so I think it's just, like Ronnie said, we need to do our best to do better. Because if we don't figure out a way to tackle these in a timely manner, then they grow into bigger and bigger and bigger things, and then we're spending more money and more time, and it just becomes a losing battle at that point.
Councilman Hyde?
Thank you, Chair. I do agree with Councilor Harris's concerns, and I do believe it would be beneficial to create some sort of standard for this. However, I do disagree with 72 hours. What happens if one was cut out on Monday, August 5th? August 6th, we had a storm. 72 hours later, we had another storm. I just don't think 72 hours I think that's too much of a time crunch. If they break and they start doing it and do the cutout at 3 o'clock on a Friday, do they only have till 3 o'clock Monday? They're not working Saturday or Sunday.
We could make it business days.
I would, my personal opinion is if we were to set a standard, some people might think it's too long, some people might think it's too short, but I would think maybe 2 weeks would be kind of a decent standard to try to live by, because, like I said, I do commend for if we set ourselves a standard as a city, let's adhere to this, but I just disagree with 72 hours. I don't think that's enough time.
I agree. And actually, a lot of my questions were kind of leading me to, is there some sort of compromise, or have we started a good idea that maybe hasn't been entirely fleshed out on how does it get paid for, how does it get accomplished, is this a good time frame? Would you be open to maybe holding this for a moment until we had a better fleshed out idea?
We can do that.
Okay.
Mr. Shreve,
Yes.
is there like a standard, I think Mr. Greer mentioned something about Virginia put out like a, was it a,
No, I was referencing Virginia as their standards.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Is there like a standard for doing this stuff?
So, I
Like-
mean,
I understand that everybody says compacting, you gotta let it sit, but we're letting it sit weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks.
so I mean, ideally, I mean, one of the reasons that it sits is that the traffic does help beat the gravel. It does help compact it, it does help, you know, with that aspect of things. I'd much rather, again, deal with gravel sinking at $15 a ton than asphalt failing at $100 a ton. Same thing goes for cold patch. So cold patch is another option, but cold patch is, again, $115 a ton compared to gravel at $15 a ton. So we try to be, you know, cost effective with the repairs. Now, if it comes to a higher traffic area, we will cold patch it because that is it's a more traversable surface probably. So a low traffic, low volume road, a little bit of gravel doesn't really hurt things. Again,
No, it just, when it continues to be that same way, it looks like
I understand.
crap.
So I mean, and do we have we have a standard operating procedure for fixing the water main break? And
Well, I understand that.
The last line of it is to repair the surface back to original condition. But that, it doesn't put a standard or a timeline on it, because again, our SOP is focused on returning water service to
right.
customers. It's not really focused on the restoration after the job. Again, it also, our standard operating procedure doesn't know what time of the year you're digging the water main up. If it's the middle of the summer, you're going to be able to get to it and repair it faster. If it's the middle of winter, again, your materials are limited.
Right.
And I don't know that our street department has an SOP as far as, you know, start to finish from, you know, again, every hole's different. If you're repairing a manhole, the road is cut out for a manhole, your top hats are 10 inches deep. So you're digging a 12-inch deep hole, you're making maybe some brick repair to the top of the cone, putting a top hat on it, you can compact it in asphalt with that same day. Water main, a little different because you're digging soupy, sloppy water, mud out of a hole, and so when you backfill it, I mean, you want to let it settle because it could be 6 feet deep. So I mean, you're trying to compact, depending on the, you know, how much water running down the road, how much snow is melting. There's a lot of different factors when it comes to repairing a water main. Cut out also because you don't know what's going on underneath the surface. We did try for a while, I want to say, and Eddie's here, he could probably, you know, testify to this. They did try for a while, capping everything with concrete. There's a lot more expense there, concrete's more expensive. You have to plate it, there's other things that have to be done, you know, when you're using concrete as opposed to asphalt.
When we did that, we actually ripped through the budget in less than 6 months.
The concrete, well, and concrete's gotten more expensive too.
And that was just a cap. And the issue with these, if there was one like you're saying, it's been years, because our procedure was always, as soon as they start making asphalt, we would take the list of the cutouts. We would look at the major ones that are on the major freeways and stuff and try to get them first. And like he said, then put ones together that are in certain areas in town and go do those. So if there's one that's a couple years old, they have to have been ones that slipped through the cracks and didn't make it either on the list or they didn't make it to the next year's list, like he said, because that's the first thing you do every year as soon as they started making asphalt. Now, it made it harder once we had to start going out of town to get asphalt. When Mars Ames was down here, we could do twice as many cutouts, but now that we have to travel to get asphalt, you're lucky to make 2 trips a day possibly.
Right.
So you're talking 6 tons of asphalt in a day is all you can get put down. So it really handcuffed us as far as being able to do more
With the distance to
cutouts.
drive to get it. What, I've seen both water doing the cutouts, repaving them, and I've seen the streets doing them. So who's actually doing them now?
So this year, so, and I'm just going to speak on this year. I'm not sure if last year they did it too. So this year, what they've been doing is the water department actually doing a lot of the prep work, and then the street department's coming in with their equipment and putting the asphalt back in. Street department is definitely more accustomed to doing a lot of the repairs, so we're getting a better product when it's all said and done.
Right.
So they've done a really good job of collaborating together and completing that.
Yeah, the ones I've seen them do, they've done a
But I mean,
outstanding job
again,
with.
it's two crews, crew coming through, prepping, digging out, prepping. And that, to be honest with you, is probably the most efficient way to do them. Because then, again, both departments, you get a better product, and it's they can dig out and put back fairly quickly.
Okay.
So
because it's two separate crews.
I know that Rebecca has a question for Eddie. I know the mayor has a comment, and then I'm going to move on. We got a long night, but I think this conversation is showing that we have a lot more to
Well,
kind of uncover here.
Mr. Shreve and I can work on this together, and then we'll just bring it back to the table here
I
in the
think
near
you're onto
future.
something right now. I think it needs a
Mhm.
little bit more. So what was your question for Eddie?
I was just wondering if you had an idea between 72 hours and 3 months, like what would you say would be like kind of a realistic time frame?
Well, like Todd was saying, the problem with 72 hours is, in 72 hours, if it's a water main break, the ground hasn't even had time to soak up that water that's in
Right.
the ground. And what happens is when you cap them off, they end up just sinking. So then you just come back and you refill. You may refill 5 or 6 times before it finally stops sinking. Ones like that we usually wanted to go at least a couple weeks to a month for water main breaks if possible.
Okay.
Now, obviously, main streets, we would do them in concrete. So you're digging down 8 to 10 inches, putting concrete in, and then they don't settle out. But the problem with concrete is you can't afford to do that on all of them.
Right. So maybe even closer to a month time frame would be better to cover all holes.
That's what I would say. If
that's
not,
right.
you're gonna,
Yeah,
like
thank
Todd
you.
said, you can put stone in that hole 2 or 3 times versus putting asphalt in it 2 or 3 times. You're gonna have 4 or 5 times the cost.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Mayor?
I would say this should not be an ordinance, that it's law. It should be a recommendation in our SOPs, I would say about 30 days, because there's so many variables that we don't control. There was a time when I was on council, the streets were paved with a fabric between the base and the top coat that would add longevity to the asphalt. What we found was the water break would happen here, but couldn't go through the fabric, so it would go down somewhere else and spring a leak through the asphalt here. So now they're digging here,
Right.
then they have to trace it back here. So now they're digging 2 or 3 times in the road to find that. So now you've got more than one hole to repair. The depth of the line, what's going on underneath the ground, we have some areas of town that are very saturated. We have some that are more bedrock. So there's so many variables that we can't control. Who's making the asphalt? Can we get to it? What's the personnel level? So having 30 days for the compaction to make sure that we're on top of everything, I think is more reasonable, and it should be a standard operating procedure. This will drive up cost. If, to your point, if there's 5-10 water main breaks on a Thursday, you got 72 hours. Are we bringing in on overtime Saturday and Sunday to fix those, double time? Can we force mandatory overtime? If we can't, we contract that work out to meet that deadline of 72 hours or 2 weeks or whatever. And now we may have violated the contract. So there's a whole litany of things that we need to be considerate of. Great concept, I understand it. In talking to Matt, the manager down there, they have a dedicated crew once or twice a week focused on this. But, it's the time of repairs in the summertime, the time people typically take off for vacation is the summertime. So there's a lot of variables, again, we can't control. Great concept. We should have some standard. I would think closer to 30 days in the standard operating procedures would be more appropriate. And we have no problem reporting to council, hey, this is what came through this day, and this is what was for this month, and this was what was fixed this month. Because things do fall through the cracks, right? And so we can look into those 2 that you pointed out on Prospect and 35th. I think you said.
There's other ones that I would have to go back to my list, and Columbia Heights has cutouts everywhere. Of course, Stratford's one of them, which we know about. But there's one on Douglas. I could go on. I have a list
On
of.
the other side of the coin, we're being proactive as possible. So with ARPA money 2 years ago, we purchased leak detecting equipment. So we can find out where the leak is happening before it comes through the asphalt and kind of pinpoint where the leak is, so we don't have digging 2 holes, right? That takes manpower. We started last year a water line replacement program. So as great as it is to buy clamps and clamp these water breaks, let's just replace the whole line, because this is almost 135-year-old city. So, doing 3 or 4 lines a year, hopefully we can do more as we move forward, but this is only the second year. I'd like to replace some of those, and some of those are in your ward, Maple, Union,
Yeah.
Maybe we replace one here, it could really affect the older lines that feed off of that, so kind of create more problems, right? By fixing those. So, kind of being proactive in 2 fashions there.
So.
We'll hold it till I
Exactly.
can talk to Mr.
I'm
Shreve.
going to hold this for motions and voting.
That's fine.
But thank you for all of this.
Welcome.
So we have no pending legislation. Do we have any miscellaneous discussion? Mr. Cheatham? Oh, yeah, I know, I see.
Thank you. I had a constituent call me and tell me that a car ended up in their yard at East Park and North Van Buren Avenue, and that's not the first time that this has happened. And they were wondering if a guardrail could be put in that area on the curve there. And I just wanted to let you know the concern there.
How long ago did that happen?
2 days ago.
So I have meetings with, I have meetings, go
I'd
ahead.
like to read that report too. I saw the fence, the kids play right there.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Right.
not too close to the curve, so I'm not sure how that accident even happened.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because the curve's down here.
Yeah.
So I'd like to see,
Because people go flying down that road.
but it doesn't seem, unless because they used to run into the radiator,
Yeah.
right? They take, going south.
Well, there's a couple of places that used to get
Yeah,
the K-pile.
so something we should look at, but.
Sure.
Right,
We
right.
also have the, if it helps all that much, the solar-powered speed limit signs that we'll be putting up throughout town.
Thank you, Mr.
For some
Chief.
people, that means speed up.
Yeah, right.
See if we can double digit.
Right.
High score.
High I can get it.
Our speed sign with the flashing light actually slows people down.
It
because
does.
When lights start flashing, they think they're getting a ticket.
Slows me down for sure. Mr. Hick?
Thank you, Chair. Question for Mr. Teodecki and probably flow over to Director Eisman. Those lights that I emailed you about, can we get rid of them?
Those lights.
There's a
There's
process
so
that
much
has to be gone.
traffic lights in downtown. I had emailed Mr.
Gotcha.
Teodecki that have outlived their usefulness, and they've just become cumbersome and silly at this point.
With any traffic light, there's a process to install them called a warrant, and a process to remove them, to make them justifiably something that we're allowed to remove. There is a cost to that. That just came up today. Todd and I haven't had a chance to talk about, how might we address that. Working with streets, they're under an inventory now of all the different traffic lights, which ones are in need of upgrading, which ones might we put on a list to go through the steps to eliminate. And that's an ongoing study, I know, that is being addressed. Those in particular, as we put those lists together, certainly we could look at and come up with a cost to go through that engineering study, potentially to look to see if there's merits to remove.
Are we as a city allowed to just change them to flashing red since they're there, or is that part of that study?
That would be part of that study, and that would be part of the process to eliminate them, should you take that path to eliminate them.
So we couldn't just claim they're malfunctioned and we don't have money in the budget to fix them, so that's why they're flashing red?
You can, but that puts the city at risk of negligence of not having a properly operating light, should you take a path like that and not be allowed to.
Huge liability.
I can't see her back there, but I bet Director Miller was happy hearing me say that. That's all I have. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Chair,
sorry.
I'd just like to interject here. I was just looking over this. There was a piece of legislation that was extended on the time frame for the roundabout in your committee before we left on recess.
Yes.
Are you prepared to talk about that tonight?
I
or
don't have the paper.
I could suggest that we call for a special to talk about it next week. I'd hate to call for a special, but we can call for one. And
We don't have anything in front of us.
okay. All right.
We don't have that.
Would you like would you like a special next week, or do you
Yes.
want to wait to? Because you would still have to suspend the rule again for time, no matter what.
I'd have to
Doesn't
suspend the
matter.
rule
So
tonight for
we can have a
time.
special next week.
You'd have to suspend not called for committee of the whole if you were to pull it out of committee, because it would be in the legislative night.
It's up to you. We can have a special next week. I'd make sure that you had all the rules that you needed if it came out.
If you wanted it on the legislative agenda,
Yeah,
and your committee was able to pull it out, it would have to be tonight or a special meeting next Monday, and suspend the rules if not called for committee of the whole.
Let's do that.
It's up to you.
Let's do choice 2. Let's do that.
Which
What do you
is-
say?
Add to the agenda
Add to
for
the
special
special-
meeting.
Special? Okay. All right, clerk, we'll just make a special meeting for next week. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, can I adjourn? All right, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
I'll second.
We are adjourned at 6:33.
Awesome. Thank you, Mrs. Beck. All right, next up is Environmental Health and Social Services with Mrs. Hager.
Thank you, Mr. President. Environmental Health and Social Services Committee in council chambers tonight, September 3rd, 2024 at 6:33 p.m. All members of my committee are present, myself as chair, Shorty Griffin, Taylor Thompson, and Justin Greer, and all other council members are present, as well as guests noted on my sheet. We have one piece of legislation from myself requesting legislation proclaiming September as Suicide Awareness Month, and also recognizing the Summit County Suicide Prevention Coalition and their softball game they will be having in town on September 12th. So do I have any questions?
Unrelated, is your microphone on?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. It was just a
That's
little bit hard to hear you there, that's all.
Yes.
Chair. Thank you, Chair. Just to be sure that this is a request for a resolution?
Yes.
Okay. Not a, yeah, okay, yeah. It just seemed proclamation, or proclamating. Alrighty. Thank you, Chair.
Any other questions? Anything from the gallery? Okay. Do I have a motion to bring it out of committee? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And, everyone voting yes?
Aye.
Aye.
Nays? Any miscellaneous discussion? Yes.
I just wanted to know if you've gotten any updates from MAD, because the biggest complaint I've been getting recently is how bad the mosquitoes are right now.
Haven't heard anything, but I know they are out spraying.
They're still like on schedule and
Yeah,
everything.
they're definitely on schedule, and again, anybody that's having an issue, you can always tell them, they can just call down
And schedule their free
Yeah.
spray. Yeah.
And they're
that's what
really
I've been
good
doing.
about, getting out there within a day or two when you
Mhm.
call.
Yeah.
So that's probably the best plan. They'll come out, because I actually had them come out and do my yard. And they came out early in the morning and do a fog in the front, and then they'll come later in the afternoon and do a barrier spray.
Mhm.
And I've only gotten one mosquito bite in my backyard since they did it. So it lasted all summer.
All right.
So, any other miscellaneous discussion in the committee, in the body, in the gallery? And can I call for a motion to adjourn? second?
I'll second.
And we are adjourned at 6:35 PM.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Sager. Next up is Planning, Annexation, and Codes with Mr. Heidig.
Thank you, Mr. President. Planning Annexation Codes is Tuesday, September 3rd, 2024 at 6:36 PM. The committee is present, which consists of Councilors Harris, Thompson, President Greer, and myself as chair. All others are noted. Lucky committee, we've got nothing. Is Director Carr here? I don't see.
No.
Okay. Commissioner Best, Mayor Judge, anybody have anything for planning?
I'll give updates at the end.
Fair enough. Anything from the body?
I
Counselor?
actually have something. Mrs. Carr stated that she should be here next week to answer any questions. I know that there have been some new requests that we're not talking about this evening, but she was sorry she couldn't make it tonight. I did talk to her right before the meeting, so that's all.
Fair enough. Anything else? Gallery? Seeing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. We are adjourned at 6:37.
Thank you, Mr. Heidig. All right. Next up, City Properties, Parks, and Recreation. Mr. Cheatham.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, I'd like to bring the City Properties, Parks and Recreation Committee to order. Today, September 3rd, 2024. Time now. Thank you. 6:37. Excuse me. And all members of my committee are present, including myself as chair, Rebecca Gerhardt as co, Jennifer Hager, and Justin Greer, all other council members and others noted on my sheet. We have one request for legislation, and that being a letter from Stacy Carr, Planning Director, requesting legislation to purchase 302 Worcester Road North and 290 Worcester Road North. Please see requests for supporting information. With that, I'd like to open up this for discussion. Okay. No discussion. Do I have a motion to call this piece of legislation?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Rebecca.
I'll second.
Thank you, Jennifer. Okay. All members calling this out of committee signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it. Miscellaneous discussion. The new Barberton Parks and Recreation Fall Winter 24-25 program guides are out. Get yours. There's a lot of exciting things going on at the Parks and Recreation. We have the month is fastly approaching. If you have not signed up to volunteer, they still are looking for volunteers, I do believe, and please do so. It's open for discussion from the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Mayor, the renovations for College Park. The Plan Commission voted to go ahead and approve that. 2 questions. 1, do you have a time frame on start, finish? And 2, the design that was showed angled parking. Do you think that is a safe thing to be that close to Snyder, or should it be further down with people backing out and people turning onto the street?
Yeah, it could be, the angle parking gets you more parking, because there's nothing there right now. So we can definitely move that down away from the intersection. So trying to reduce any hazard there and back up. Time frame? Soon. So now we have the luxury of waiting for, CDBG, for HUD to approve the CDBG changes and things of that nature. We've got quotes, updated quotes and all that good stuff. So another week or 2, I believe, they should give their final approval, and then we can move forward with everything, so.
Thank you.
Yep.
Sorry, I'm in your way.
Raise your hand.
Well,
Rebecca?
Look at me.
thank you. Well, actually, Mr. Heidick, did they talk in the planning about the restrooms going in, or is that coming to council for restrooms? Money for restrooms over at College Park?
I don't believe, they don't really talk the money in the commission there. They just look at the plans and
Say your name.
say whether it's conforming or not conforming, or whether it's something that can or can't be done.
Okay. Mr. Cheatham, can I give the updates from the last Parks and Rec meeting?
I believe it was canceled.
Well, I went to it. It was in August.
Oh,
Zeke and
well,
I attended. You were
I
out
didn't
at-
go, I was on vacation.
I know. That's okay. That's why I went.
Can you give
September
it?
is
Yes,
canceled.
Yes, without a doubt.
Okay.
Give it.
So
Cry
I think they're
loud,
going to come to
cry
council
loud.
to discuss money approval for restrooms at College Park. Mr. Cheatham and I can join the Parks Commission, and they're going to do a tour of the parks, so we can drive around and get to see them all, which probably isn't as exciting for you, being a lifetime resident, as it is for me. Our cameras have moved from 90% done to 95% done, and they're looking at potentially doing hotspots so we can monitor the cameras versus having to go and pull the feed if something bad happens. I will be needing a fishing pole to participate in a fishing derby this October. Anyways, like you said, the Mum Festival is coming right along. I thought this was neat, the Polymer Tech program that the foundation's working on will be set up at the Mum Festival, so that's gonna be pretty cool to check out and see more about. And then, I was just curious, I didn't make it to the parade, did anybody go? Is the new route like even better than before and?
I
Yeah,
was
Yeah.
in the parade. I did the parade.
Yeah.
I loved it. I thought you saw a lot more of Barberton.
Oh, good.
I do think there were less people there than in past years. I don't know if maybe they were more spread out, but around the lake it really petered out.
okay,
So I don't know what that was a result of. Maybe not people realizing the new route or people didn't show up. I don't know. But
Yeah.
I do feel like there were less people at least.
okay.
But I loved it.
Beginning so they can get the candy.
I was gonna say, sit at the beginning for
I
the
know.
candy.
I know.
The
I know.
candy. There's a lot less candy at the
I
end.
feel so bad for those kids at the end, but no. But even throughout the, not just at the lake, I feel like it was a little less
A little low.
attended. But I could be
Okay.
wrong.
Well, I worked the end of the parade for years, and those kids make out too.
Well, the very end.
Yeah, they
Yes.
get
Give it
their,
away.
they get the
They
bucket
dump
stuff. Yep. I was also in the parade yesterday, and in addition, I think it's a good route in general. I think it's so much easier as somebody who's like participating, walking in the parade, for the parking at
Yes.
like at the high school, at the middle school. It was such a breeze as opposed to like lining up down 16th Street where
Yeah.
people are already parked on the street
Right, getting
anyway.
yourself
You
That
know,
was something
it
they
was
talked
so
about
much easier.
At Parks and Rec, that the parking was gonna be a lot better
Yeah.
for this.
So I thought
Okay.
it was great, and the weather was amazing yesterday. So
Yeah,
I heard from a lot of, saw a lot of people commenting on Facebook that it was one of the best parades they've seen in a very long time.
good.
So I think people were happy with the route and just the parade in general,
The only other thing I made note of is they talked about, because now we're at the conclusion of that day at the park that they had brought back. And it was primarily only at Tusk, and it averaged 10 to 15 kids. I only make note of that because it might be something for our consideration when we see that coming up in the budget,
10 to 15 kids total for the whole summer?
It averaged about the same 10 to 15 every time they had it.
Oh, okay.
So, that's all I wrote down. Thank you, Kenny.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, that's kind of a lot of kids, though. Every week, the same 20 kids showed up. Is that what you mean?
I mean, the same 10 to 15. So this program was for the same 10 to 15 kids at one park. For the expense, I thought maybe it could go to all,
I was going to say,
spread
if
it
you
out
were to
and try to attract
times all
kids
of
from
the parks,
throughout
that's-
Barberton.
That's a lot of kids served. You know what I mean? I think that's good. That's what I was trying to
To
do.
have the 10 to 15 kids at the one park.
Yeah, but then times that by all of the parks, that's a lot of kids.
They only did Tusk, though, is my point.
I know that,
Oh.
but
If we grew it,
widen that out, yeah.
I got you,
Then now
yes.
you're serving a lot of children.
Yeah, if we could
And
get
that's
it
a lot of
spread
kids
out.
for what, how many people at, how many grown-ups or adult supervision at a time?
I think 2.
So that's, any more than that, that's too many kids. You know what I'm saying? Okay.
Handle 30 at a time.
Finish?
These are not teachers.
Finish?
Done, sorry.
Okay. Any more discussion on the floor? From the gallery? Can I get a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Second? Thank you, Mr. President. Meeting now adjourned at 6:48.
All right, thank you, Mr. Cheatham.
Yeah.
Public Welfare and Safety, Mr. Harris.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, I'd like to bring the Public Welfare and Safety Committee to order. It is Tuesday, September 3rd, 2024. The time is 6:48 p.m. We're in council chambers. All members of my committee are present, including myself as chair, Mr. Cheatham, Ms. Gerhart, and Mr. Greer. All other council members and others is noted on my sheet. We have 2 pieces of legislation that were requested. The first one is a letter from Mayor William Judge requesting adoption of the Summit County 911 plan. Emergency wording requested. Any discussion on this? It is 27 pages long if you'd like to read it. It's, Mr. Mayor?
So, Councilman Greer asked me just before council about this, and I apologize, I wrote the letter in, I think, middle of July. But I'd like to read this email, which is not 27 pages, but just to give a recap. So this email is coming from Summit County. Under section 128.08 of the Ohio Revised Code, counties are required to maintain a 911 plan, which essentially details all the PSAPs dispatch centers in the county, their budgets, and some operational information, like how they receive 911 calls and how 911 wireless surcharge funds are spent. So this is a requirement under the Ohio Revised Code. So this is, all communities are approving this, and then we have to send that resolution, sign the resolution to the county, which I'm assuming they send that to the state. So a little more to it than, just want to give that brief kind of recap summary versus the 27 pages.
The 27 pages? You want me to start now? We might get done at 10 o'clock tonight. Maybe. Any other discussion? Can I get a motion to call for this, please?
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any nays? Motion passed. Second piece of legislation we have is a letter from Jamie Eisman, Safety Director, requesting legislation to enter into a contract with Vasu for the purchase of new radios. The amount not to exceed $505,901.23. Emergency wording and 1 reading requested. Mr. Greer.
Thank you, Chair. Director Eisman, it feels like we've done this, like, recently. When was the last time we had to get new radios?
That was the fire department.
Oh, that might have been, okay.
This would be for police and
That makes sense.
utilities and street department.
And it's been a while.
And this puts us in line with the digital stuff that's going to be required by July of 2025. Any other questions? Mr. Greer?
Well, thank you, Chair. Since you mentioned the digital requirements, what are those? Do you know offhand? Like,
Not
why-
offhand, I know it's coming due in July of 2025. I think all the radios will have to be digital.
Our old ones will not work, I know
Yeah.
that much.
They're analog,
okay.
and digital, but I'm trying to think of the,
Link layer.
yeah. That won't work. So, we don't want our police officers and
Yeah.
utility workers and everybody not having communication. So new radios, digital, are called for.
Well, awesome. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Director.
Mr. Heidig?
Thank you, Chair. 505,000, is that excessive, or is that, how long, for $500,000, how long will these be good before we have to replace them again?
I mean, that's a great question. I mean, the radios the police department has right now are 15 years old. In terms of, they do cost more because of having the link layer authentication, the encryption for police. Those are the only ones that will be encrypted due to the cost of those. We were able to save quite a bit of money. We went down by 40 radios. We did a huge, all departments, huge inventory, checking serial numbers, what we really needed. So we were able to buckle down, not on police, but everybody else.
So is there a time frame? Like, do you estimate these would be good for another 10, 15 years like the previous, or?
I talked to the chief. He also said that they can actually program them on air programming. So you don't have to take the radios to the radio repair shop for any, reprogramming. They can do it via computer and send it to that radio. I would venture to say that these radios are probably going to last a little longer than what we had. Which, if you looked at the radios that we have now in police, it says for indoor use only.
Perfect.
Even though we use them outdoors all the time. So,
Thank you, Director.
And we were able, the police department did get grant funding as well, not for all of it, but, and we've been planning for this, it's in the budget.
Thank you, Director. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks.
Mrs.
That
Thompson?
that was actually my question. I remember Chief Morber talking about this when we were going over the budget, so I know it's a lot of money, but
it's something much needed.
don't really have a choice when it comes to this, because like you said, they're not going to work anymore come 2025, so, yeah.
Some of the some places in the city have spots that the radios won't transmit and you can't receive. So, a safety issue big time with that. With the new ones, you could probably go anywhere in the state and use them.
As long as it's connected to the internet.
Any other discussion? Thank you, Ms. Eisman. Can I get a motion to call for it?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
First by Justin, second by Rebecca. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Motion passed. I'll open it up for miscellaneous discussion. Ms. Gerhart.
I was just wondering if anybody else on council is getting a lot of calls about fireworks from your residents, complaints.
No, but I hear them all the time.
Yeah.
There's a bunch yesterday.
Yeah.
I think I got one call
Really, just one? Okay.
from the same person. So.
That's fair. All right. I was just wondering if anybody else around Barberton was getting calls from their residents about it.
Mr. Greer?
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I will make this quick. First off, yes, constantly. All year, every year, constantly.
They're sending me photos of the empty
Yep.
firework boxes now.
Mhm.
I think they want me to dust
And-
it for prints.
Yeah. Second, this may be a very premature question. I am a nerd when it comes to radios. Are we going to be selling the old radios on OpenGov or auctioning them off? Anybody familiar how we're going to offload our other radios?
I've not heard anything.
I have not, I mean,
I just want to be on the lookout if they're going up for sale.
Chief, I don't know.
The value of the radios are almost, they're obsolete. The newer radios, just to let you know, are going to be more useful, not only citywide, but you can use them throughout the county and throughout the state a little bit. I mean, the Summit County dispatch system that we use we have 12 towers throughout the county. I went to a meeting at the beginning of this year. Last year, there was over 12 million transmissions between police, fire, EMS, all throughout the county. And this system keeps track of every single transmission. When you click up your radio, it identifies who clicks it up. We know who clicks it up. And like I said, it keeps a running total of this. And we have a manager, Mike Sabo, that takes care of the whole radio system for the county. So it's a lot of expense, but it's very precise, for that.
Well, I'll follow up when the time comes. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chief.
He wants one.
Yeah. Anything else for miscellaneous? Other council members? Gallery? Kind of get a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All right, we are adjourned at 6:58 PM.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Next up is Rules, Marketing, and Development. Ms. Gerhardt.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, I'd like to bring the Rules, Marketing, and Development Committee to order. It is Tuesday, September 3rd, 2024, and the time is 6:58 PM. We are in council chambers. All members of my committee are present, including myself as chair, Mrs. Beck, Mr. Heidick, and President Greer. All their council members and others as noted on my sheet. We have no new requests for legislation at this time, and we have no pending. We're starting to sound a lot like planning, Mr. Heidick.
We're the lucky ones tonight.
I guess so. Do we have any miscellaneous discussion? Seeing none, I'll create my own. So, kept myself busy in August. I met with other community development corporations to learn more about them, because there's more than just the BCDC. I was able to attend Norton's council meeting, because they meet on Monday nights, so we usually are in conflict. I could meet Paul Towsley, who butts up with us, Lori, and has been working on that problem house with me since December. No progression, but we did discuss it, just so you know. Got to attend Liniform's 100th anniversary and birthday, so that was neat. Usually I'm working. Went to Howmet's ribbon cutting, so it's my second ribbon cutting, first for a business. Unfortunately, I missed yours, but her office is adorable. Make sure you go see it. And we did our dam tour, so I guess a lot of us can get on there.
What?
So, that damn tour, Kenny.
Sound like you was bitter.
How far did you make it in?
I went all the way. But then,
I
like,
did too, but it had a meltdown.
Some of them escaped out the other end.
I couldn't go back the other way.
I was kind of,
She grabbed onto me, we were about 10 feet in, and she grabbed onto the back of my shirt.
I was
I
kind of
didn't make it back.
disappointed that, like, people were trying to leave so quickly, and then I forgot to see if my glow-in-the-dark nail polish worked, and they already had locked it back up, so. But it was very fascinating, and I appreciated the tour, and we saw the water department again, so. myself and Mr. Harris were able to host 2 different opportunities, and Mrs. Thompson, to help residents with any of their tax papers and flooding stuff. So I was really appreciative of that. What about trash cans? Does anybody get a lot of calls about trash cans being left at the curb? What can we do, Mr. Mayor?
That is an ordinance, isn't it?
Yes.
Sure is.
Yep.
Sure is.
I got another call about it in a different street.
Property maintenance, and, that's something that I've seen people leave them out at the curb and they continually walk out of their house to put the trash in there.
Yeah.
And
They
it's
live
on
at the
rollers,
end, yeah.
Can't make it much easier. One of the issues we have with property maintenance in general is staffing.
Yeah, I know.
Mr. Shreve and HR finished up the first round of interviews, about 10 to 12 candidates last week. So the goal is to hire 2 more. So that'll help kind of curb some of that, because instead of chasing complaints, we can set them in an area. This is your area. You don't have to worry about the other side of town. And they can focus on issues in that area.
So we have like 1 property maintenance inspector per ward?
No, the way we did it before was not by ward, because, some of the wards are kind of goofy. Like, first ward goes past, Worcester Road and kind of goes over State Street Bridge. So it doesn't make sense to mix some of 4th and 1st together, like the north end, right?
Okay.
So we created some zones, and we'll kind of recreate that again. And create kind of hot spots, like where are the real trouble areas. And we meet internally monthly on hot spots and like troubled areas. And, there's one section of town dealing with this type of property maintenance violation more than others. And sometimes it's education to the residents, and sometimes it's more citations that have to go out, right? So that's the staffing part of it that I think will help contain some of that.
Thoughts on like a Facebook video where you talk about like, this isn't where you leave it, or something, or like a letter?
Yeah, we're talking about doing a lot of different Facebook videos of grass in the street. Why is that so dangerous?
Yeah.
Little things, the trash cans, right? And something little like a trash can or recycle can at the curb constantly that really, broken windows, right? It really tears down the neighborhood.
Yeah.
So sometimes the little things have big impact, right?
Yeah. And it's my residents who definitely are caring for their properties, and they're just seeing this start to happen and can't get a grip on it, so.
I do have a question about that, actually. It seems to be the individuals that are leaving their trash cans out on the curb. Seems like that's habitual. They already know that they're not supposed to be there, because I know people have called on them before. I've called on the same one a whole, bunch of times. So is there an escalation of, this is your 27th time we've had to tell you to take in your things?
Yeah, so until they're cited to court, there's no escalation. If they're cited to court, there's escalation. However, what might be helpful is just the initial letter, not a citation letter, but just a letter saying you can't leave your things in. If it's a rental, we need to talk to the landlords about that. So, until that's brought to me in that way, I can't do anything in terms of enforcement.
Thank you.
Mr. Griffin?
I've been having problems with West Heatherwood. The HOA up there is trying to force people to put their trash cans in their garages. Now, these people don't have basements. They can't build a shed.
Right.
And they can't put their car in the garage because they're using it for a storage.
Right.
So now they're trying to force them to put their garbage cans in the garage. And also I have people that are handicapped that can't put their stuff on the street, and Kimball would take them and put them in there. Mr. Miller?
So there's 2 areas in that area of the city.
Right.
One has a huge HOA that's very active, and those condos all have basements.
Okay.
The second area is an area that the mayor and I have been receiving lots of calls from over the past several years. They do not have an HOA. and they need to either recreate their HOA or they need to do something legally. But I will tell you this, the city has absolutely no authority over that group of condos. It's the much, much smaller group. The larger group of condos, those condos all have basements.
Right, but what I'm told is this one person is controlling that.
I'm here to tell you that it is my understanding legally that that group of condos, the smaller group, does not have an HOA currently. That's a legal issue, not for the city.
I understand that, but I told the people I wouldn't put them in the garage, I would keep them on the street. I don't know.
Well, they can't keep them on the street.
What would be the alternative?
Well, you can't leave your, we just had this conversation, you can't leave your trash cans
No, I
on the
mean, leave
street.
them out there until they pick them up, and then after they dump the trash, bring them in your yard. What's the
Sure.
problem?
I don't know. I am just saying that that area does not have an HOA. So if it's just one of the people in that group complaining, but we have no authority over that. If an HOA passes a rule and it's passed according to their bylaws to ask them to do something, they do that. That's the benefit or non-benefit of an HOA.
What's your suggestion?
I would just put mine on the side of the garage.
They told them not to.
Well, like Ms. Miller said, they may not even have an HOA, so that's something they would have to look at the legality of it. And I mean, if they don't have an HOA, then I mean, how can they enforce that?
I think our city ordinance just requires it to come out of the right of way.
Yes.
So you can put it in the middle of your front yard, which is, in my opinion, still an eyesore, but it's at least not, oh, you can't?
It's gotta be on the side.
Oh, okay. All right.
It can't
I
be
was
in front.
specifically getting calls about the one being left at the curb. Okay. I don't know what to do with that one.
I know some people have been canceling their service with Kimball because they can't physically take them to the curb. And they refuse, Kimball won't go in their garage to
And
take
get them.
out.
They're probably just, it's probably a liability for Kimball to go inside of.
Oh, Lori, you can go.
I know from having my office in the utilities department, utilities is the one that deals with the trash cans. My understanding is if somebody is handicapped and they talk to Kimball, I don't know if there's a form, they may want to contact down there to find out. But if they are handicapped and disabled, the trash cans being like on the side of the garage, the driver has to go up and get them, bring them down, empty them, and take them back to the side of the garage. They are not to enter structures. That's what I was told when I had a phone call months and months ago asking about that. And they called utilities and got it all settled. So that might be a solution if somebody's handicapped. I don't know about any of the other stuff, but.
So with that, yeah, if you contact my office, we ask for a note from your doctor saying there's a reason, medical pickup, and as Lori said, the driver will come to the house, take the cans to the vehicle, drop it, and then take it back to where it's at. So in this situation, I think that the garages are next to each other. So I would tell them, if it's not in some HOA rules or there's not HOA, stick them next to the garage as best as possible if they're on the side of the house. But we can you get a letter from your doctor and he can sign you up for medical pickup.
Very good question and information being shared. Thank you. Any other miscellaneous? Okay. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
In a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. I lost my clock. What time is it?
7:10.
This meeting is adjourned at 7:10 PM.
I should have said 1910.
Thank you, Ms. Gerhart. Next up is City Utilities, Mr. Griffin.
Thank you, Mr. President. City Utilities. I would like to call this meeting to order today, September 3rd at 7:10. All members of my committee are present. Myself, the chair, Jennifer Hager, Emily Beck, and Justin Greer, and all others is noted. We have one request for legislation to call for tonight. We have a letter from Michael Teodecki, city engineer, requesting legislation authorizing the mayor to submit a funding application to the Muskingum Watershed Conservation District, MWCD, emergency wording requested. This is just an application for funding. It has nothing to do with us paying for anything. Now, Michael, would you want to give us a little heads up on that, or is it good enough? Right.
It's Truth Farms.
Yes.
Thank you. It is for an application for funding the design portion. There is a small city portion that we would, if successful with the funding, that we would have to add to that. That wouldn't be 100% funding. So we requested about $117,000 from Muskingum Watershed, and we would be responsible for about $38,000 in addition to that. I sent a bunch of information over the last couple weeks related to what this funding and project is all about. I do have additional maps if anybody has any questions of the drainage area that we would be fixing and making corrections to that would help hundreds, if not thousands, of Barberton residents. And I have a ton of information that I sent out related to how we're attaching a very small area where we're collecting water and connecting it to a much larger area capable of storing, infiltrating, collecting, and disposing the water without jumping over into the neighborhood, which would then go through the neighborhoods to get to where the Twin 60s are. I know it was a lot of information, and I'm willing to answer any additional questions you may have about the project or who it helps or the neighborhoods, if you have any questions.
No. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you pointed to me, sorry. On the South Barberton Watershed Master Plan, this was only the, 4-page versus the 19-page. It shows the Oxbow wetland, that little red part, and then this big Phase 4. When was Phase 4? Because I think everybody thought this wetland was Phase 4. Was this big part always part of the wetlands, or was this newer?
When was it added?
The Phase 4 is that bottom section that you're referring to, and again, that's a previous document that shows the approximate area of the wetland and where the project is. And may I approach with some new maps that
This is the Christmas map.
Thank you, Mike.
I have additional, if anybody else that may want one. I think I have to go around twice.
Mike, you want me to do that one talk?
Thank you.
Where am I?
Okay, so,
Is there a store you can point me to?
is there what?
A store? A frame of reference?
Herb Square is up here. All right.
Snyder is here. Van Buren is here.
Okay.
619 is here. 619 goes all the way out.
Okay.
So what the colorful drawing shows, the three closest drainage areas, the red one is the one that the project basically collects the water into about the center of it. That is a very, very small area that doesn't have the capacity to handle. I put the blue arrows on there to show, generally speaking, where the water is flowing in that drainage area. It collects in that red area, and when that small bucket to collect water overfills, unfortunately, it doesn't go south into a much larger area that's capable of collecting it. That water heads west over to Elson, floods out that neighborhood, heads in a northwesterly direction into the edge of the red and yellow zones, flooding the neighbors' streets and so forth until it collects around the Twin 60s and heads over to the Tusk. This project would, looking at the next sheet, that drainage separation between the green area and the red area is the red line. What this project would do would actually break the little crest that's higher than the neighborhood of where Elson's at, would drop that elevation to take that water into the major portion of the swamp, which by calculation can store a lot of water. I mean, I don't remember the exact numbers. It's like 22 acre feet of water, something like that, which is more than enough to take on the water of both of those drainage areas. So you're actually diverting the water into an area, holding it back from the Tusk for a longer period of time so that it can evaporate, filter, and eventually get to the Tusk. So Project 3 we talked about a long time ago is putting in the controls for setting up this project to be successful. So this project kind of does good things in the wetland and then opens that gate to get to an area that's much larger to hold the water and get it to the Tusk. So that's what the project's about. It helps that red area and zone to manage its water. And any further questions about the zone and what the project does?
I think Ms. Guerra asked you, when was this added?
The fourth project was
Yeah.
2 years ago when Thrasher did a study. They had a bunch of different recommendations in this area, and cost effectively we narrowed it down to 4 projects that would best serve this drainage area. So 2 years ago, it was part of the 4 phased recommendations.
So and this is still private property, correct?
It's private property until we know exactly how much land we need, and then it will not be private property.
How so?
We need the property in order to spend Muskegon Watershed or most funders' money to do a project. And until we know exactly the shape, size of what we need to do the project, we're going to ask for exactly that amount of property, not more, not less. What I don't want to do is make a mistake and get way too much property or way too little property to do an effective project. So this next step defines how much property we actually need. We would obtain that property by donation, and then we would continue with the rest of the project, and we would then, at that point, come back and go after construction monies to build how much project we need to make this successful.
Why will the person who owns this property not donate it prior to?
They will. We just don't know
Why
how much
haven't
to
they?
get. We don't, absolutely, they'll donate it. But even in order to write a description for how much we need, I don't have that information. That's what this next step will do, is define that area.
I mean, I was down on the south end on August the 9th. And obviously the things that we've done have helped tremendously because it was bone dry compared to 14th and 15th Street that was flooded that night, August 8th.
That's a great question and a great observation. I will tell you the storm on August 8th, the zones and streets of what it did hit and didn't hit through that whole corridor from up by Stowe, Cuyahoga Falls, Akron, Barberton, Rittman, there was areas of concentration just a half a mile apart that received 6 and 7 inches of rain, while a mile east or west received 2 or 3 inches of rain. What I keep referring to as bucket full didn't get in the drainage area the same amount of rain that 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th streets got, even based on our own rain gauges in and around Barberton and surrounding areas. And had that been shifted even a half mile over this area, I guarantee you, based on everything I know about this site, would have experienced yet another overtopping into Elson and the neighborhood in that direction. But it didn't, because it didn't get that direct focus in that red drainage area to the levels of other areas. It will happen again.
I still have a problem with the fact that it's private property.
I do too, and we would never do a project not on our own property and make it a permanent conservancy so nothing else could ever happen to that property. It would be in our control.
I mean, if it's that important, then we should probably get the property first in the city's name. And I understand what you're talking about, having, the area drawn out or whatever to say, hey, we need this amount of area.
It's chicken and the egg. I don't know which to do first. You have to be concise as to what property we need to do this project successfully has to be defined. And that would be the first step of the project to make sure we get that.
The Muskegon Watershed grant can only go to the city.
Okay.
Your chair,
Mr. Harris, you said there wasn't any standing water?
Myself and Mr. Greer were down walking.
Okay. You know where it was? It was raw sewage in the basement.
That was
several houses.
That was everywhere.
Well, out there too, and that's the lowest part. So you gotta do something. So I'd rather have water outside a little bit than walking around in raw sewage. You know what raw sewage is?
Yeah.
Okay. But anyway.
I was a police officer for 25 plus years. I went through a lot of things like raw sewage.
Every little bit helps. So this would help.
I understand that.
Instead of going through that drain and going there, it would go south. That would lessen the chance of walking around in raw sewage in somebody's basement.
Correct. Okay. I still have an issue with the fact that it's private property.
It's not, it's gonna be city property.
Okay.
And they're investing a lot of money in that.
If during the focus of the first phase of the design, we can identify the property, put a pause, make sure that we have it before we continue to final design, is that more appealing, to make sure that we stop as soon as we know we have the defined area? That's easy to write in a design contract.
Thank you. No, not for me. But my question is, first of all, I would like to see it in writing that the property owner would donate this ahead of time. But that's.
I have that.
But, okay, well, we'll take it with a grain of salt at this point. But my thing is, why, I'm all for flood mitigation, of course. However, my concern is we have a huge development that's supposed to be going in there. Why not wait until that's complete to then do that? Because what happens when this development goes in and, oh my gosh, like it would have been so much better over here. I don't know.
So that map, the green area in your map,
the development is represented in there. This improvement we're talking about does absolutely nothing in the green area, which is part of the development. This project entirely helps the red zone, not the green zone. The development is identified in that map. And any developer is required that the water that leaves the site today, after your development's in, the water can leave no faster than it does pre-development. They're required to hold their stormwater in they're creating their own detention areas and retention areas, controlling their own water, and that water, when it comes out, is going south, not up towards the red area. So this project doesn't help or hurt or depend on anything that happens in the green area.
So the development in no way will affect the surrounding area?
That's true, correct.
Thank you, Chair. In the email that had the laundry list of answers to some of our questions, the year 2014 kept coming up with different plans and whatnot. And one of my questions is, if that holds true, then 10 years later, the BCDC sold to the developer in 2021. All of the plans and all of the rezonings and all the accoutrement that goes with that development coincide with the same time, damn near the third reading, and I will put this in public, it's a record, I did oppose all of this at Truson Farm. But the Thrasher studies all came to fruition around the same time as the legislation was requested and coming up near the time it was passed. Not when the BCDC held it, not from any time from 2014 forward. These don't line up that all of a sudden now somebody who bought this, there were flood studies done on his property. After 10 years prior, it was done. But yet when legislation was coming to fruition, suddenly these studies were done. You mentioned that his development has to mitigate his own water. Does he have a drainage plan?
Yes, there is a drainage plan.
Okay. Director Miller, are the plans for the development valid anymore?
No.
So there are no plans. So we don't have a drainage plan because there is no development plan. Is that a correct statement? Am I embellishing anything, or is that to be accurate?
There's no plan. There's no plan.
So there's no
It
plan.
expired.
Okay, so we cannot go off of what plans were then, because there are no plans. He may have had a drainage plan. He may have had this whole plan for this development. It no longer exists. But it just seems to me to be out of place that it's expired, there is no plans, because they aren't plans anymore, and that all these studies and all these things came to fruition after it was in the hands of private ownership, rather than from 2014 to 2021, when the BCDC sold it. We could have easily gone on that property and identified in that time. Why did we wait till it was under private ownership? And what is I don't see how we can plan a development or something like this when he could submit plans that are completely different from what the original plans were for his development. He owns quite a big parcel. Am I correct in saying that? That is a huge parcel. What if his new drainage plan contradicts this?
Right.
And then it's approved by the planning commission and approved through council? Then we've shot ourselves in the foot. I support Councilor Thompson's notion. I would see the development plans when they come, if they come, before we make any moves ourselves to see what kind of movements, what kind of, he called for 150 rental unit complex.
That's dead. That's dead.
So,
The rentals are gone.
The plan is gone.
The plan is gone.
The whole plan is gone.
36 home sites as of right now. We're waiting for the final builder to come in with the designs, which was already presented. I'm on that little subcommittee. And they came in, we have blessed off the changes they're gonna have. It will be independent homes that people can buy, built by this building. But right now, the apartments are off the table altogether. Don't even know if they're gonna.
With all due respect, Commissioner, if it hasn't passed the commission, it's the same as our upcoming development code. It does not exist, and we cannot give thought to it because
That
it's
part-
not
That
there.
part passed. As soon as we say you meet the requirements that we asked on the houses, that's already been blessed. That's all he's got to do is come in and say, do I meet the requirements? He's got the approval for 36 homes in there.
No, that plan expired. He has to propose a whole entire different plan for that, for his area. That's what the code says. He has
Thank you.
to submit the drawings, where the storm sewers go, where the utilities lines go. That has not been submitted.
Has the Plan Commission seen new plans that Director Miller is saying?
That's supposed to be due anytime.
But it doesn't exist. That's my point. Thank you, Chair. I relent now.
So I want to say another thing that's not coincidence, but may seem like a coincidence. When I first started, the city was approximately 3-point-some years ago, about the same time the Thrasher study started, about the same time South Van Buren started. One of my first assignments with the mayor's office was a project called South Van Buren. South Van Buren, when I looked at the drainage area of South Van Buren, I helped and assisted to do a bigger, broader study, because that South Van Buren kind of acts as a dam, so does Eastern Road, which water can't get past. You don't design a project to just handle the water within the roadway with blinders on. So I convinced council, the mayor, to allow me to work with Thrasher Group to study drainage in a much larger area, so that when we built, a $4.5 million project, we accounted for the future down in the way everything tips down towards that direction. So and I dove in, I've got 32 and a half years of engineering, then a lot of it deals with drainage. I've done a lot of successful projects. So bringing that into this area I thought was important for flooding in Barberton. So as a result of that, and I interactively went through every calculation in the drainage maps and studied how water shifted around. I had no idea the development was going on. I'm focused on drainage, how to make Barberton better with flooding. I came in today, I heard 3 different comments of how to get rid of water. And it echoes in my brain all the time how you get rid of water. So my focus was on helping this area, and we came up with a 4-tiered way to manage the water down in this area. We've completed 3 of those. This 4th project helps hundreds and hundreds of homes, and I'm telling you here now, the red area is the one being helped. The green area is not being helped. And I assure you, with whatever the developer is doing, with whatever configuration, and there was actually a meeting about it today, that they're bringing in the calculations of what it's going to be. No matter what they are, they will be required to manage the water. Not a drop faster leaves the site than it did before. No matter what that is, it has no bearing on the project that I'm bringing before you that helps drainage in that red area. So the mixing of what a developer is doing somewhere else in Barberton versus the continued to try and get funding to assist major portions of flooding that does occur and will continue to occur is in a different zone of Barberton on where water goes. So I assure you, it helps the red area, doesn't help the green area, which is where the development is. These are 2 separate issues. No matter how coincidentally they came together, I assure you they're separate. I don't know how to say it anymore.
Mr. Mayor? Yeah, and historically with this site, and you brought this up before about BCDC owning it and the loss of EDA money. So there was going to be the plan was to put a small light industrial site there. The engineering group at the time did some calculations based on Google Map. They didn't walk the area. So whatever was a wet area, they miscalculated. The infrastructure improvements that had to be made to get a wider, solid base for trucks and things of that nature for an industrial park was more intense than a housing one. And so we missed the deadline. And so BCDC, so they didn't get dinged, had to give the money back. So there's a lot of kind of snafus of the planning part of that. And that was on, I'm not blaming BCDC, there was a lot that went into that. We haven't had a lot of people lined up at the door for this site. And over the years, we looked at the light industrial site. We looked at a golf course. We looked at a cemetery. We looked at, a little bit of everything, right? The closest we came was a few years ago, they wanted to put in several greenhouses to grow dandelions for rubber extraction for tires, right? And then they just went cold. Never heard from them again. And then this development came in. Back in 2014, this wasn't a priority site. When I came into office in 2012, there was no record of even cleaning storm sewers out. So that was the first thing we did, was clean storm sewers out, a very aggressive program. We also worked with other communities to try to create a regional watershed district, if you remember that. So that was the priority. How do we stop it up north from coming here, as we were kind of focused on our infrastructure as well. We were dealing with Norton, Copley, Summit County, even Medina County, because our watershed goes into Medina County. And it just became very convoluted. You obviously have a lot of elected officials at different levels, and it was very, very difficult, and it kind of just went away. And at that time, the county engineers started talking about doing a county-wide stormwater fee, right? So this wasn't a priority at the time. Since 2014, obviously we've made great strides in putting in new retention ponds, cleaning out existing storm lines, widening and increasing the capacity of existing retention ponds. Little projects here and there. First Street parking lot last year, not in a flood zone, but it controls the water that goes into the system. So this wasn't a priority at that time, so that's why it wasn't really done. And I don't know if the funding was there through Muskingum Watershed, this type of grant. I'm not sure. So kind of some history on the site and history with why this wasn't a priority at that time.
Yes, Mrs. Huron.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. I know you said when you came on board, like you started doing a bunch of stuff, but basically since 2014 has been this master plan with the 4 different phases. So about 10 years for this plan.
The 4-phase approach is only a couple years old.
Just a couple?
Yeah.
So
And we started,
what was the 2014 date that keeps getting thrown around then? Just,
I think Councilman Heike asked why this wasn't, when BCDC owned the land, why wasn't the city involved in doing this type of mitigation on that site? Is that?
but he's asking about land that isn't part of the district that this flood mitigation
for a lot of
project is
years
even
though, we've probably
included
been
in.
working on water in South Barberton though. For many years now, we've probably been working on getting the water out of South
absolutely,
Barberton.
yeah.
Is there any idea how much we've been able to spend just in that area?
I didn't hear the question.
Any idea how much we've been able to, we've spent on that?
I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but I could get costs for the first 3 projects related to stormwater.
Okay.
And I don't have that with me.
Okay.
I can tell you 5 million of it on Van Buren did a hell of a lot of good. with
I
the
saw
new
that in
inlets
here.
there. So I
Okay.
can tell you 5 million just to start's been spent on mitigating it.
'Cause-
And I do want to mention that the August 6th and August 8th storm, I've lived on Elson for 16 years, not as long as Councilor Griffin's lived down there, and I have never seen the water flow faster and our sewers take them and not get overburdened like I saw with those 2 nights. The roads aren't flat, they're curved. That water was damn near touching on Elson in the center, and those sewers kept open the whole time. And I emailed to both of you, and it's a testament to the work that has been done down there with all the flows and all the sewage or pipes and everything that you've done. I'm behind Councilor Thompson on this. I want to see this development built before we do anything. And
I wanna say
that'll be
something.
my last.
What does development have to do with South Barberton? Because the land is there. They're gonna donate the land so we can do this project to get the water over to the swamp. So if Truson Farms or whatever doesn't ever exist, you're still helping South Barberton. So if you don't do this project, you're gonna throw South Barberton under the bus because you're saying that you wanna see a project completed, which might be 2 or 3 years from now. It might never happen. So what we're gonna do in the future, just get water, sewer overflow. Your house is on a slab. You don't have to worry about your basement coming up.
Oh, I
You
have a
don't
crawl
have one.
space. I have a crawl space that has flooded in.
You have a
in the
crawl
past,
space,
yes.
okay, which is a lot different than an 8-foot basement.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm saying is, how come you can't help South Barberton stay dry and have to put Truson Farms agreement with them so they'll finish before you do anything? Why can't we do this project now? And the heck with Truson Farm, if it goes forward or doesn't go forward, you're still helping South Barberton. Why? How come you can't see that? What's the difference?
I've talked to past officials, past elected, past administrative officials, and the one thing that they say they lament and they just wish it never happened because it did the worst thing for the flooding was they just can't kick themselves hard enough for Elson Point being built. And I don't want to see a repeat of what happened. If that caused this, can that cause that?
Exactly. That's why.
If one allotment did that much havoc, and every elected official that I spoke to that's a past servant, and every administrator that I've talked to that's a past servant, just hang their heads about it, if we didn't learn from that, are we doomed to repeat it? I don't want to see the South Side suffer another allotment that traps or dumps if this is just a part of some other plan to drain water from an allotment.
Mr. Teodecki said that they would have to have their own drainage system. Didn't you say that, Mike?
And I'm sure Elson Point had one too, and how did that work?
They didn't have one. It wasn't a plan at all. They just threw it under the bus. They just built it.
How was that, how could that have been built without protocols in place, without the planning commissions, without drainage?
At that particular time.
The Elson development didn't generate more water, which causes the flooding down in this area. That just happens to be the first part of the neighborhood when the water in that whole drainage area tries to get to where the Twin 60s are. It passes through the streets, including that development and neighborhood. That development going in didn't generate more water, which creates flooding.
It just made it higher.
It's just the residents that live there get to
Which
see
pushes
the
the
water.
water away from it,
Exactly, yeah.
That's what it did.
away from it in different directions,
Right,
not
so it
just
causes-
one
But I
way.
can't see not doing this project, regardless of what Truson Farms does. If you do this project, you're still helping South Barberton. You're still helping. Now, you can sit over there and say you don't want to do it until after the development gets in. What are you going to do if the flood next week, next year? Huh? Well, we're still waiting on the development. That's dumb.
What are we gonna do if the water from this development overruns this and dumps it all down into South Barberton? Can we guarantee that doesn't happen? Can we guarantee that if an allotment is built and water runoff does not follow 100%, Mr. Teodecki, you've said it yourself, Mayor, you've said it yourself, water will go in different directions wherever it can. Can we guarantee that if we do this project and a development's built and they don't move the water like their drainage plan says because the water goes where the water goes and it overruns this and dumps into the south side, can we guarantee that will not happen? With a development there, can we sit here right now and guarantee a development and this project, the water will hit with a new drainage plan, because one doesn't exist yet, will not come over that and into the south side? Can we confidently 100% say that?
They're separate drainage areas. That won't happen. That area in the green will not move uphill and flood out a different drainage area.
I don't think anyone would guarantee anything with so many variables, but I would guarantee that if we don't do this project, you're doing harm to the south end.
Two things. I think that, waiting for this development to be finished to, basically address a problem that the south end has is sort of like waiting to see what color your neighbor paints their house in order for you to fix your car to get to work. Do you know what I'm saying? It doesn't make a lot of sense. It doesn't make sense.
No idea where you're going with that one,
But because they're not two, they don't go together. They don't go together. But also,
Water and water
if-
goes together.
hold on. If this person that would have to bring a new development or a new plan to the planning commission or whatever, they would have to change the water flow 90 degrees from this for it to flow into South Barberton. We see it flowing away on here, so they would have to drastically change
I'm seeing the
something.
water go both ways.
Right, but also where you see it coming to here, this way, it's gonna flow right into where they wanna make a wetland. And also over here, there's a reconstructed berm redirecting water, which this is also where they wanna make the wetland, where that water is flowing, that area, or arrow flowing that way, it's gonna catch it, and there's this berm here. So, no matter what they do over here, they would have to completely reverse the flow of water a different direction for the development to affect South Barberton.
Do you know what the elevation difference is between the two? I know there's an elevation map somewhere. I've seen it. I probably have it in my file cabinet.
Between the two of what?
Between the Truson Farm development and South Barberton.
I can get that elevation. It's feet. But you're climbing over like the Continental Divide. I mean, if everybody knows what the Continental Divide goes through Summit County, water flows north to Lake Erie. South of it, water flows down to the Ohio River and goes out to Mississippi. So, Barberton, all our water goes south. It'd be the same discussion to say people in Stowe are mad that we could possibly do something to send water to flood Stowe out. We're on the wrong side of the divide to do anything to affect the other side that's higher. I mean, it's impractical to assume they could do, first off, they're required to. They're gonna turn in a plan very similar to what they had before that's no longer approved. They understand they're starting over, but starting over to revise a very small changes, they will be controlling all their water. That water never enters the red zone. They're not pumping it uphill over a divide into another drainage area. That's not gonna happen. We're trying to control with this project the flooding that occurs in the red zone. That's the project.
I have a question. Is it a law that they can't let any more water flow out of that area than what's flowing before? Because I know I talked to Representative Romer over the weekend about flooding in general, because I was talking about working with Fairlawn, because they've got that whole new development on Cleveland-Massillon Road. And he was saying that the city was working on developing their wetlands south of there. So I was just wondering, because that's the city working on that, and I'm not seeing any, like retention ponds or anything like that within that development. So I just want to make sure that that was a law that they have to.
That's correct.
Okay.
So, sorry, I just have one last thing. So, looking at this map, right, it has the flow lines. I'm seeing it go both ways. Maybe I'm confused. And I know the difference may be feet, but, I mean, you saw how, like, 17th Street, was it 21st Street? It was up to people's porches in a bad rain. Like, it can happen, and that's why I'm saying, like, I want to continue with flood mitigation. I just don't think it's a good idea when we've got a potential development. I at least want to see the plans for it, at the very least. But I worry about how this could possibly affect the outcome of this, because if something needs changed, I think it would just be easier to do it all at once rather than we did all this work for flood mitigation, but now we're having this problem in this area, and we're gonna have to go back and do something totally different. It's gonna cost us double, That's where I'm at.
One more item I'd like to bring up is Muskegon Watershed represents major areas, and they understand that projects that do good for your community are ones they fund. Any funder looks at regionally significant projects. They're looking at everybody downstream. Every time we do a project, it's even better for more and more people downstream. We do have, with our application, understanding the regional significance of what we're trying to do. Jack Daniels, state representative, wrote a nice letter thanking us and supporting our project. I have another one that is from Eileen Shapiro, Summit County. They understand regional significant projects with what it will do for not only our area, but again, further downstream. The Summit County Engineers Office also understands how our project not only helps us, but helps our neighbors and folks downstream. Bill Romer, state representative, again, also understands our project and further downstream. Summit County Soil and Water, this project filters a lot of the bad stuff that's in water, keeps it, makes it infiltrate, filters it out before it heads downstream. The Summit County Council also, they have additional support letters for this project, understanding that not only does it help Barberton regionally, it helps the entire watershed. So I just wanted to please make note of that also.
Is there a deadline on when you can turn in this application?
We've already submitted the application, and they won't grade our application until we show council support to take it to the next level. So
Do you have a deadline on that? I mean, obviously,
there is, and it's first practical point. We submitted the application, and we let them know council was on vacation, on recess through the month of August. So proactively, we submitted the entire application, and we're still in a pending point until we show this. So if we can't get council support, they will throw our application out.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. So you said it would be like $38,000 to help pay for the study?
Yes.
Back when we talked about this in June, it said applying for design money, asking for 80% of design phase. So if we do a study, we won't know how much this is going to cost until that study comes back? Because like, what are we ultimately paying besides the $38,000?
The next phase would be anticipated design of the project, which in design, like if we get this, we would move into a design contract.
So we're only studying it right now, and then we'd have to design it?
The study is behind us. We're moving into the first phase of the design project.
Okay.
So we would start looking at, go out and survey. We'd look at land elevations and down to the inch to figure out exactly where the high point is, exactly how much water and how to build the dike on the side to protect Elson and crack that area to connect the two swamps. So all of those engineering studies, once we know how much land we need to specifically do our project correctly, we can pump the brakes in the design process, make sure we secure all that land before we would spend another penny. That's an easy enough thing to only spend as much till we know for a fact we absolutely have all the land.
And these comparable ones that Caroline provided us, any idea how much those cost in case it goes forward? The page 4 or 5 of the 19-page one?
I can get costs for you if you'd like. I don't have those off the top of my head.
I was just curious, like, what we'd be looking at, like millions more?
So, for instance, we just did Snyder Avenue stream mitigation, which was did some wetland creation, filtering, and that was a $300-some thousand project, which I'd still love to give a tour to anybody that wants to see that project. So it depends on how much you're doing and the size, and I don't know exactly how much this project will cost, and again, until we figure out exactly how to do it and how much land we need to do while we're figuring out the right solution.
Thank you, I swear. So I can appreciate that this is an application for funding. So we'll find out how much we've been approved for and obviously things of that nature. But my concern is I don't want to spend a dime of our money until we are absolutely guaranteed that we have that property. That will be our property and that we can move forward with it, because if not, then what a waste, you know? And I also want to know what the potential development will look like and a guarantee that that won't affect this either, you know?
By the time if this passes tonight and we are successful for a design funded from Muskegum, we're months down the road from this point in time. And I believe, based on the developer's plan, they're going to have some additional plans coming to Planning Commission and so forth to the city here within days or weeks. So
And the
I think
developer
timing-
has to get their plans approved, right?
Right.
What's the deal? I'd like to see us own that property first and move forward. I don't see doing all these phases then stop at the last one. That don't make any sense. If you were going to do this, you should have did it in the first phase. It needs to be completed. If you're worried about the builder's plans, that's who you need to check on and see what they're going to do. Because he's saying that one don't have to do with the other. Well, I'm gonna take you at your word on that. And I think we just should get it finished. Thank you.
I just have a quick question regarding the request itself. So should this actually read that you're requesting legislation that council supports that the application's already been submitted? Because this is a resolution authorizing the mayor to submit the application altogether, but it's already been submitted. So really, should it, just legally speaking, should it say?
I know a lot of times, even with AMATs, with roadway funding, the applications go in, you follow up with the ability to have the mayor submit an application. This council action would complete that submittal process to put us in a scorable position with the funding agency. So
Okay, so this isn't the only time that we've been asked to approve the mayor to submit an application, and then we find out about it afterwards.
they would pull our application, and this one again is unique because of council vacation.
Sure.
But they would just pull our application and toss it, not even score it, should we not be successful to get council action. It's a requirement of the application, so that would formalize that
Gotcha.
in their mind.
Okay. Just curious, thank you. I'm done with questions.
Madam Clerk.
I apologize.
Do we have any more?
I just have
One
one more statement, because I just have to say this. Mr. Teodecki, the letters you have of support from different entities, how many of those entities and how many the county engineer, county council, how many of them, they're cheerleading us 9 years ago in 2015 when the Wolf Creek drainage assessment was done, how many of them put a shovel in the ground for projects of their own? Yeah, they're cheerleading us. They didn't do a damn thing to help us back then. So I love Bill Romer to death for helping us get money for certain things, but those letters fall on deaf ears to me. They didn't help us 9 years ago, and they just want to cheer us now. Mm-mm.
Mr. Griffin, thank you. Thank you, Chair. This is going a bit long, but it's a good conversation. I just have one quick question. This is going to be turned into conservatory, right? A wetland conservatory. Is that application going to be done once we own the property, or is the private owner going to do it before he gives us the property?
As part of it, when we would get the land, we would, as part of our process, force that permanently on that piece of land.
Okay.
As
I
we
just know
take
there's
ownership.
big tax credits that come with.
As we take ownership,
Conservatory.
that would be our land. We would put that restriction on it for evermore to be used for the intended purpose of our drainage.
One follow-up question. You mentioned that the property was going to be donated. Is that gifted, or are we buying it for $1? There's a difference, because if,
I don't know anything about it.
okay, just something to keep in mind.
I don't have an answer whether it's $1 or free.
Thank you, that's all I had.
More. Mr. Cheatham.
I'd like to hear more about that transaction, because, added nothing is for free. So,
True.
That I would like to hear more about.
Yeah, this is obviously something that is very important. All of us, I feel, are very passionate about doing what can be done to mitigate flooding in the south side and other areas of Barberton as well. I think we've had really good conversations tonight, really good questions. I honestly think it would be better to not vote on this, to pull it out of committee for tonight. Get some more answers on, what exactly, do we have a guarantee that this owner of the property will donate that property?
Didn't he say he had a letter from him?
But
Yeah.
a letter is not a binding contract, is it?
Yeah, I would prefer to see.
Ms. Miller,
I'm sorry.
You did?
is a letter
This
a
is
binding
letter-
contract?
this-
No.
Yeah, I would prefer to see a contract stating that, obviously you can't say how much, but just stating that he will, donate the necessary land. Because, if we go into this and we say, okay, yes, we, approve this.
That's not how a contract
And
works.
then we start and everything, and we get to him, okay, now it's your time to donate the land, and all you have is a letter, and he says, nope, sorry, don't feel like it, then kind of where are we at?
Well, that's not how, you can't write a contract for.
Yes, actually
uh,
you could. He definitely put in an area that he's saying this is where the greatest need is, correct? So you measure that on a map and you say not to exceed the amount in his zone. That's exactly how you write that contract.
Yeah, so I just think we still, in shorter, I know you feel very passionate about this, and I don't think anyone wants you to think that we are, putting the south side under the bus, because I don't feel any of us are.
So I, again, feel that exactly what Ms. Miller just said can be the first step in the process as we move forward, and hit the pause button. If we don't get that, it's not a project, but he's already said he will, and let's put him to task as early as possible, but I don't even know what to do, the parcel research, to do any part of the zone. I guess we certainly, there's still process to put that together, which this kicks off the design. That can be a step one, get the land secured, or and about area secured, move along a little more and get the permanent land secured. And again, there's a way to baby step through this without expending a lot of money, but to even kick that off is what this does. This council legislation just asks somebody, could you fund this? This isn't even moving into you're gonna have another step here soon if we're successful when we select the consultant to go through this whole process again, and that's gonna be months down the road where we can have this discussion again and make that for sure part of the design contract, if and when we get to that point.
Yeah, this is just for an application. Why are we going through all these changes?
Because it's also cost us $38,000.
For the application?
If we awarded it, did you not say $38,000?
That's the match should we get the funding from this.
So if we are awarded, it would put us on the hook for $38,000 to continue.
The way the application is written, yes.
Okay.
But wouldn't we have to vote again?
Oh, I mean, listen, the owners, there's multiple owners of these parcels. They're not all the same person. There's multiple LLCs. We would have to enter into agreements with all of those. I mean, the last thing I saw was the last thing you saw. A month or so ago, correct?
The 19-page study?
No, the last map.
Oh, yeah.
Do we have any more questions? We don't have any more. I'm gonna make a motion to call for this.
I'll make that motion.
We'll make the motion. Do I have a second?
You can
As a second on the committee.
You can second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes, right?
Right.
Yes, sir.
Was that one opposed? Sorry.
Yeah.
Ms. Hager?
This is 3-1.
Yeah, she didn't say, just making sure that was you opposing.
Okay, motion passes. Do we have any more miscellaneous discussion? Anything for good of the body? Yes, Mrs. Gerard.
I know we're running long, but since we're talking about water, I was wondering if we could talk about Ward 5 for a few minutes. Mayor and Mr. Shreve, I never heard back on the email I sent out on August 13th about the allotment in Norton and how it's draining their retention pond, if it's going into the creek or into the storm sewer. Do you guys know about that?
Yeah, and I saw the email response from the City of Norton, and I reached out to Larry as well. And I sent your email to our stormwater manager, and I know she's dealing with some other things associated with the flood, so.
I had copied her on the 13th also. Nobody responded to me from Barberton.
Okay, well, and I apologize, since that's in Norton, I was waiting for them to respond. I believe, and I want to confirm this, that creek and the creek that goes down Gardner Boulevard comes into a pipe in Barberton, right near the rail line, by the 15th Street Bridge. And then it goes underground and it dumps out at the sports complex.
Okay. So
your
the
question was,
allotment
who's
up on
in charge?
Norton Avenue, we think that that retention pond is going into the creek versus being tied into the storm drain?
I don't know anything about Norton's system. I think that's what Larry responded.
I guess I was thinking we would know, because wouldn't we be the building department for Norton? Wouldn't we have had to approve the retention?
Nothing to do with the stormwater.
But we don't, we oversee that for Norton regardless.
That allotment came in before the city took over Norton's building. So that was already built.
Okay.
Larry's their stormwater guy over there.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that,
I
I
know.
need
I walked
confirmation,
it.
because our GIS map only
Can have it.
includes what's in the city of Barberton. But I believe that that does go in there. We have multiple tributaries that come into the city. Your question was, whose responsibility is it to maintain those creeks?
Well, the first question is Stonewick going into the storm sewer line or is it going into the creek? If it's going into the creek, that creek is clogged. It's overgrown. It's not maintained. Would residents have been told you have to keep this a certain way? Because what happened is when it gushed down 17th, that's what destroyed that home. And I know it was a flash flood. That destruction was going to happen anyway. But if we don't fix this, they're spending over $50,000 of their own money to try to put that basement wall back up, and it's just going to happen again.
But
So-
that creek's in Norton, correct?
Pardon me?
That creek is in Norton?
The creek's in Barberton. It's like across the street, because it's in my ward, unless my ward ends at the end of 17th.
That creek did not show up on our GIS map. So I'd have to go back and look at the boundary there.
Yeah, because if
It
you're,
clearly shows where the storm inlet is.
if you're on 17th, the next to last house on your left, and then the last house, it's running between there. And then it keeps angling back. So when I was looking at it on this side, I was standing in the mobile home park. So is that Barberton or Norton?
The one off of 15?
Barberton.
So that's Barberton, and that creek's all overgrown there. I have, the guy that's at 29th and Liberty, you've met him a few times, I think, keeps posting, it looks like raging water, rapid water, going down there anytime it rains. It's eroding his property, and it's flooded out backyards on 30th, and he said we can't put in a storm sewer over there. He said he's asked the city for years, and we won't put one in.
So I would say probably 30 to 40% of the city has storm sewers. So we try to install storm sewers where we can, when we can. It's very expensive.
Mhm.
The city's always maintained, I'm assuming, gravity, right?
Mhm.
And our responsibility is to get it off the streets. When we redid 31st Street back in 2011, 2012, they did extend storm sewers off of 31st Street on those side roads, 1 or 2 blocks, and then they stopped. I don't know if there's a funding thing, it started before I became mayor.
I saw some at 30th, and then it's coming from up at 29th. And when it gets down here, they go up in the air. So I think they need to go down.
Yeah, well, I mean, that all has to be engineered, that all has to be, there's a lot of work that goes into it. And there's areas on the north end of town, the Evergreen Street and Madison, east side, every section of town, Columbia Heights has no storm sewers. So we're looking at how do we incorporate more storm sewers throughout the city. And everyone's going to wonder why not them first, right? That's going to be the fight. And then how does the existing system take on all that additional water? So you try to fix one problem, you may create another one over here because the lines are only a certain size. That's why when we did South Van Buren, we put oversized lines in. Because there were none there before. So you got to be very careful how you structure this, because you don't want to create bigger problems down the road.
Okay. Are we able to look at the retention pond over at the primary school? My residents off of 21st have said that since that primary school was put in, they've seen some more flooding in their basements, and then most of them had excessive damage during the flash flood. It looks pretty overgrown over there when I went.
Well, it's overgrown for a purpose, so it's made to do that. That's why Edgewood Park is overgrown that area. It's a natural wet area. It'll really never dry out. So you kind of want your retention ponds to be grown like that. You're saying residents on 21st Street are having flooding?
Close to spring.
So it's coming down through spring.
So it's coming down through spring from that area?
There's no curb there, nothing. I mean, they would have been having flooding forever. Nothing there.
Yeah.
I would assume. Yeah. It's a magic city. They put homes up all over the place without any care, right?
Do we have plans to do anything with the think it used to be a school over on 19th. Now it's just a big, huge, empty city block.
Former Sam's lot, so the school owns that.
Okay. So what's the plan for the school? Is that something that we could buy from them or get from them to absorb water? Put in wetlands or something?
Well, you want to be careful with just putting in wetlands anywhere.
A
There were
retention
some
pond?
stormwater issues there when the school was there, and we straightened out some pipes, had to buy some homes and things of that nature. And then the school was torn down, but it's been a much better area. I don't know if putting any type of retention there would help it or not. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I know most of the residents that live in that area told me that they have had dry basements for the last 8 to 10 years until this last August 8th storm.
I just didn't know if there was a way to utilize it to get some of this water that's flooding all my other areas. Because all of that, in addition to 14, 15, 16, we're back having water to the top of their ceilings in their basements. But I think I knew about those. I didn't know that there was this much water problems everywhere else in Ward 5, so.
The entire city is lower than, it's a punch bowl for the entire county, all comes this way. And, 14th and 15th Street sit lower than Wolf Creek, so it actually floods there.
Mhm.
Back in the day, people were just happy to have a roof on it, right? And you get what you get, right? So we've been working with FEMA to obviously buy up those homes and return that to a natural drainage area. So that project's still going on, and we need to close out some of these projects before we start some of these major new ones. It took a long time to get FEMA involved in Barberton, because they deal with flooding that carries homes down the rivers, right? So for them to be involved in Barberton is a big deal with 3 streets.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's a water main break, not a water main break, there's something on 14th Street a few years ago. And I think Kenmore had to come in because they couldn't dry out the land underneath the ground. It just kept filling up with water because the water table was so high. And that was down by the Slowedes line. So, you know where that?
Yeah, Worcester Road there and 14th Street. And a contractor actually lost his excavator because it was so saturated. Then more had to come in and bail them out and make the repair because it was so bad.
Yeah, I mean, if there's an easy answer, it would have been done years ago, I guarantee it.
Yeah.
A lot of compounding issues. Right? Again, you fix something over here and you create another issue over here.
Is the plan that we just talked about for South Barberton, would it help West Barberton at all?
No. But, you gotta take each little project and to the greater good of the community.
Oh, yeah. I was just curious how it all worked and if it would help one
The
another.
storm sewers we put on East Houston last year didn't do anything for the west side. The retention pond in 9th and Houston didn't do anything for South Barberton or the west side. You got to take opportunities when they come up too. A lot of it has to do with what funding is available from Muskingum Watershed or whoever else, right? Because they may be there one year and not the next year.
Yeah. Okay. If you can help me figure out that creek, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
We don't have anything else. Could I have a motion to adjourn, please?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. We're adjourned at 8:18.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin.
Is that how fast?
We're rolling up on 2.5 hours before we even get to finance. I'd like to take a 10-minute break if we could, and we'll come back at 8:30, do finance, and then go right into the committee of the whole. begin here in a minute.
That's from my constituent, just a little background about it.
Oh my God, we're not even done committee meetings.
Oh,
yeah.
That was what she was gonna speak.
It is cold, huh?
I bring a song?
I'm sitting like I forgot how cold this room is.
You got all comfortable with nice
Where's
weather in
Miss
there.
Gerhart?
And you didn't think, hey, I'm going to nice.
She waited until the last minute.
I know what it looks like.
Packed a jacket in the back of the car.
That makes it worse.
Yeah, before I
Yeah.
left, I'm like, well, I have those sleeves on. I should put this jacket in the back. I forgot it.
All right, we are live streaming.
Yes,
We're waiting
I turned
for,
it back on. Oh,
Everybody, but
Here.
I just realized what you were looking for.
Here.
hey, just-
Love you, 1776.
I figure I'd get a year.
when Miss Gerhart walks in, we all just need to applaud.
Okay.
No, don't. Good.
Oh, yeah, I forgot you said that. All right, he said it.
No, don't do it. Surprise, wait. Yeah, we're waiting.
She's still on this committee. We can start
Nope.
without
I
her.
was gonna say, can I start without her? She's not on the committee.
We technically can,
All
but
right, I'm doing it.
are you sure?
Welcome to my Finance and Personnel Committee meeting. It is Tuesday, September 23rd, 8:33 PM here in council chambers. My committee members are present, which include Mr. Heidig, Mr. Griffin, Mr. Greer, and myself as chair. All other council members, with the exception of Ms. Gerhart, who should be in here any moment, are also present, as well as guests as noted on my agenda sheet. We have several requests for legislation. The first being a letter from Mayor William Judge requesting adoption of the Summit County Intergovernmental Memorandum of Understanding for job creation and retention and tax revenue sharing. Renewal effective October 1st, 2024. Emergency wording is requested. Are there any remarks? Hearing none, can I have a motion to call for this?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. And a second? Perfect. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That's everyone. All right. Next up, we have a letter from Jeremy Flaker, our finance director, requesting a resolution authorizing the advance of local taxes by the county fiscal office for the 2024 tax year payable in 2025. Emergency wording is requested, and that is also attached, pretty standard. Are there any remarks regarding that? Hearing none, can I have a motion to call, please?
So moved.
Thank you. And a second?
I'll second that.
Perfect. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Moving on. We have another letter from Director Flaker requesting a resolution accepting the rates and amounts of property tax as determined by the Summit County Budget Commission for 2025. Emergency wording requested. Are there any remarks? Hearing none, can I have a motion to call, please?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. And a second?
A second.
Perfect. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Next up, we have a request to correct language on ordinance 64-2024 to reflect the correct previous amounts. Emergency wording is requested. This is just a correction, not a change in any of the current pay amounts. They are simply changing an or to and/or, which is attached. Are there any questions or remarks on this? You guys are making it super easy on me tonight. Can I have a motion to call for this, please?
So moved.
Thank you. And a second?
I'll second that.
All right. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Next up, we have a letter from Chief Iono requesting legislation to have $24,892.50 appropriated from the unappropriated item of the general fund to the fire department's operation and maintenance budget of the general fund for the purchase of a battery-operated hearse extrication equipment. I saw him nod his head after I said that. Yes, that was hard to pronounce. Emergency wording is requested. What is this? Chief?
This is the Hearst tool is used for usually auto extrication, and instead of being operated by a gas
Gasoline.
generator, pretty much, it's battery operated.
Oh.
Which makes it a lot easier to move around, a little bit lighter, and a lot less maintenance.
Sounds great. Are there any questions for the chief regarding this? All right, hearing none, can I have a motion to call, please?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. And a second?
A second.
Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All right. We have another request from Chief Biano requesting legislation to have $9,157.50 funds received from GovDeals appropriated to the Finance Department's operation and maintenance budget of the general fund. Emergency wording is requested. Are there any remarks? Hearing none, can I have a motion to call for this?
So moved.
Thank you. And a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, next up, Mr. Flaker. We've got the finance report.
All right, let's go over the July finance report. We'll start with the healthcare fund, as we normally do. Revenues for the month was $481,000. Expenditures just shy of $416,000. That's positive about $65,000. Puts our net year-to-date as about negative $421,000. A lot of that just has to deal with the healthcare holiday that we took at the beginning of the year. Moving on to the income tax fund, you'll see our estimates was a little over 1.1 million. We actually got a little under 1.5. Just make note that about 300,000 of that was the JED payment from Norton. So income tax wise, that Rita collected was more, about 1.2 million. We transferred 1.5 to the general fund. It's leaving, I think at that point in time, at the end of July, like 3.9 million left to transfer, if memory serves me correctly. Moving on to the statement of cash receipts and disbursement, we have a few funds in the negative. It's the same funds that I've covered month in and month out. City grant fund, that one is the new sludge to watering building down at the wastewater treatment plant. The FEMA fund is the flood mitigation grants and the dam grant. The CDBG, that's HUD grant money. All those are reimbursable. Once we pay out the expenditures, they'll reimburse us for them. The other two funds in the negative are on the next page. Fund 660, our healthcare fund, that is just due to encumbrances outstanding. As we continue paying Summit County for our health premium, that will come out of the negative, should be coming out of the negative in the next few months, next couple months, I should say. General liability fund is the other one. Those are insurance claims. So once we charge those claims back to departments, and that encumbrance keeps going down, that will get out of the negative as well. Comparing last 3 months of activity, the general fund went up slightly. Part of that is due to a bigger transfer compared to last month. And then the encumbrances outstanding also went down by about 600,000. So between those two things, raised the unencumbered cash balance for the general fund. Special revenue funds went down. A lot of that is the encumbrances outstanding went up by about 1.7 million from last month. So that's why that went down. Enterprise funds stayed about the same. All other funds did go up some, by about 525,000. It went up. Part of that is, if I'm remembering July correctly, we got our advancement on property tax, I think, in that month. So that's part of it, and the encumbrances went down as well. The encumbrances went down by 400,000. So between those couple things, that's why that's there. Comparing last year to this year, well, last July to this July, general fund has stayed about the same, but I do want to note, if you look at the transfers, we also transferred about 4.4 million more this year than last year at the same time. So why the unencumbered cash balance the same? It's a lot of it just has to deal with us transferring a lot more money. Special revenue funds is down by 8 million. Once again, that's just the ARPA funds being used up. Enterprise funds is down slightly by about 2 million. All other funds is down slightly by about 140,000. Any questions?
Thank you. All right, since there are no questions, can I please have a motion to call for the approval of the finance report?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, and a second.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
All right, is there any miscellaneous for finance and personnel? From anyone? Gallery? Hearing none, can I have a motion to adjourn, please? And a second?
I'll second that.
All right, we're adjourned at 8:42. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Thompson. That concludes our individual committee meetings for this evening. We're going to roll right into our committee of the whole meeting. So, today is September 3rd, 2024. This is committee of the whole meeting for Barberton City Council. I call this meeting to order at 8:43 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, citizens addressing council, there are 0. So we'll hop into committee reports, and we'll start with street, sidewalk, and lighting with Mrs. Beck.
Thank you, Mr. President. We met in council chambers this evening. We went over requests for legislation to fix the cutouts, and we decided to not call that to a vote this evening. And then we adjourned, and I passed.
All right, thank you, Ms. Beck. Environmental Health and Social Services, Mrs. Hager.
Environmental Health and Social Services, met in the council chambers this evening. There was one request for legislation from myself for a proclamation proclaiming September as Suicide Awareness Month. At the committee, we had no miscellaneous discussion and adjourned at 6:35, and with that, I pass.
Thank you, Mrs. Hager. Planning, Annexation, and Codes, Mr. Heidick.
Thank you, Mr. President. Planning and Annexation Codes has nothing to report. With that, I pass.
Thank you, Mr. Heidick. City Properties, Parks, and Recreation, Mr. Cheatham.
Thank you, Mr. President. City Properties, Parks and Recreation had a meeting on tonight where we had one call, an ordinance allowing the city of Barberton to make a formal offer to purchase 2 properties along Worcester Road North, one being 290 Worcester Road North and the other 302 Worcester Road North. It passed, and that's it. With that, I'll pass.
Thank you, Mr. Cheatham. Public Welfare and Safety, Mr. Harris.
Thank you, Mr. President. Public Welfare and Safety met this evening, September 3rd, 2024. We had 2 requests for legislations. One was a letter from Mayor William Judge requesting adoption of Summit County 911 plan, emergency wording requested, and a letter from Ms. Eisman, Safety Director, requesting legislation to enter into a contract with VASU for the purchase of new radios in the amount not to exceed $505,901.23. and both of those were voted to come out of committee. And Ms. Gerhart asked about fireworks, and that was it. And that, I'll pass.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Rules, Marketing, and Development, Ms. Gerhart.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Rules, Marketing, and Development Committee has nothing to report this evening. With that, I pass.
Thank you, Ms. Gerhart. City Utilities, Mr. Griffin.
Thank you, Mr. President. City Utilities next tonight, September 3. All members of my committee were present, myself, Chair Jennifer Hager, Emily Beck, Jeff Singer, and all others as noted. We had one piece of legislation to call for, authorizing a draft resolution authorizing the mayor to submit a funding application to the Muskingum Watershed Conservancy District Partners in Watershed Management for the South Barberton Stream Creation and Wetland Restoration. We after a lengthy discussion, motion made, call for this, and it passed. We were adjourned at 8:18.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. Last but not least, Finance and Personnel, Mrs. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Finance and Personnel Committee met this evening at 8:33 here in council chambers, and we are calling for the following legislation. The first, The first was a letter from Mayor William Judge requesting adoption of the Summit County Intergovernmental Memorandum of Understanding for Job Creation and Retention and Tax Revenue Sharing. We had a resolution request from Mr. Flaker authorizing the advance of local taxes by the County Fiscal Office for the 2024 tax year payable in 2025. Another letter from Jeremy Flaker requesting resolution accepting the rates and amounts of property tax as determined by the Summit County Budget Commission for 2025. We are calling for a change on Ordinance 64-2024 to correct some of the wording in the ordinance. We had another request from Chief Iono for legislation to have $24,892.50 appropriated to purchase the battery-operated Hearst extrication equipment. And another request from Chief Iono for legislation to have $9,157.50, which are funds received from GovDeals, which will be moved to the Finance Department's operation and maintenance budget of the general fund. We also are calling for the approval of the July 2024 finance report. There was no miscellaneous discussion. We adjourned at 8:42, and with that, I will pass.
Thank you, Mrs. Thompson. That concludes our committee reports. Is there anything from the body? Any remarks? Ms. Gerhart?
I just wanted to thank everybody that helped volunteer at this weekend's Labor Day. Thank you, Emily, Jen, Todd. Tina played a big role. It was a hard one. We were up against some weather conditions and a lot of humidity. But it was a good time, so I just wanted to thank you guys for your help.
Thank you. Is there any other council members? Department heads? All right. I just want to say welcome back to the grind. Hope you guys had a good recess. Want to thank Lori for working while we were gone. Want to give just a quick thanks to Director Weaver, or Mr. Weaver. He's not here, and Dan at the Water Department for the tour and the time they took to show us the dam. Again, some people got to see it for the first time, but this is the second time. And that will be the last time, probably, elected official other than maybe the mayor or somebody going down there will see the dam before it gets filled in. So other than that, I do not have anything else, so we'll hop over to mayor's report.
Thank you, Mr. President. Echo the same. Welcome back, council. There's been a lot of work this past month that we've been doing. First, I want to thank Main Street Barberton and all the volunteers that helped make Labor Day a success. Road resurfacing and reconstruction projects moving right along. Continuing to meet with businesses throughout the city, and obviously dealing with several storms that came through town on August 8th and August 30th. With the August 8th storm, there was some confusion because if you remember, there was an August 6th storm that did not affect Barberton. August 10th, Governor comes out with a declaration, state of emergency. Everyone thought it was both storms, and that's how it was reported to us, and that's what everyone thought. It only covered the August 6th storm, not the 8th. So there's certain criteria that everyone has to meet at the local level, to the county level, to the state, for that to be enacted. And so there's a, amount of damage, cost of damage, things like that. So whenever there's a storm or there's any issue, it's imperative that people call the city and record that. So if it was limbs down, or a tree down, or 2 inches of water in the basement, or 8 feet of water in the basement, it's important that we know about that. And we understand when we're taking calls, people are frustrated, right? They're angry, they're upset. Why did this happen? Why did it happen so bad? Or I'm not going to call because it wasn't that big of a deal. We need to know, because we try to assess our damage to our streets and to inlets and things like that and try to adhere some cost to that. And they only gave us like a week to report on that, right? So not a lot you can do in that time frame. But if we know that 2,000 residents were affected, but only 5 people call in, well, that's what they look at. Everything's data driven, right? So for that storm, we have, I wrote a letter of support urging the governor to declare a state of emergency for the August 8th. I know that county council did the same, and our state reps had written some letters too and hand delivered them to the governor. We have not heard anything back, but I don't know if we've met that threshold. So we did open up an emergency operations center that night. So we were here till about 1:30, 2 in the morning. That helps our chances because we felt that there was a serious need to bring everyone together and collectively work to address any issues in the community. So please tell your constituents that no matter how big or how small, they've got to contact us, right? And obviously their attention is going to be on whatever issue it is. So if it's 8 feet of water in the basement, that's the priority, getting their stuff out, making sure everyone's safe, things of that nature. But at some point, they got to talk to us and let us understand what's going on there so we can record that. So it's very important. We've seen in the past where FEMA will come in a week later and say, well, you already ripped the drywall off, so I don't know where the water line is, so we're not going to cover it. Well, we can't expect people to just have wet walls, right, and not do anything about it. But they also deal with loss of life down in the southern states, right? So you got to kind of see it from both perspectives. But it's important that we record this stuff as soon as possible. But I do want to thank the council members who helped assist residents with self-reporting for damages and get that to the county. Very, very important. But also our city crews and safety forces for controlling the situation and helping out residents. The August 8th storm was not on the radar. And it's kind of don't take this wrong way, it was a fantastic storm. Like, it was just unbelievable, and it just kind of hovered and sat on Barberton. But as Mr. Teodecki said, we got about 5 inches here at the building. Coventry got less than ½ an inch, but the far west side, they got a lot more. And then it was just crazy. So when we talk about stormwater mitigation, we're trying to hit every section of town, and it's a kind of a moving target. As I told Councilman Heidick, you create a mitigation project over here, the water will go somewhere, right? And you want to go into that project, but it may find new ways. Rainstorms are all different, and so that one was kind of a unique one. But everyone kind of pulled together, and we did the best we could there. But we do continue to work with Summit County EMA and the state and FEMA to try to get some help here. Over the break, we welcomed Remax Realty, Emily Beck's office. Congratulations, downtown. We also, as mentioned earlier, helped celebrate an $8 million expansion at Howmet Aerospace here in town that we've been working with them on. These are, not only good for the company, they're good for the employees, and obviously good for the community as a whole. We also celebrate Linoform's 100-year anniversary. Moving forward, open office hours are scheduled for Saturday, September 14th from 9 to 11 at the Active Adult Center. And then, as mentioned earlier, the MUM Festival is coming up. But to kick that weekend off, we'll have the Walk of Fame on Tuesday, or on Friday, followed by Tuscany on Tusk immediately afterwards. And then that flows into the Mum Festival, which is a great event for the entire community. So, as mentioned earlier, also volunteers are important. These things do not happen without volunteers, and they are not successful without volunteers. So it's important that they're successful. They've been successful. We've had a lot of people who have volunteered for 30 plus years. It's time to get new people involved, and I know it's tough to take a full day or a long time to be out and volunteer, but even if you can take 2-hour chunks or 4-hour chunks, that helps quite a bit. So that's all I have, unless there's any questions. No?
Mayor, if I may add something to the reporting that you mentioned, and it's something I've been here for 6 years now. We're going, well, longer than that, but Mr. Harris and myself were out driving around the day after on the 9th, and something Carolyn Fertig, the sewer and stormwater, mentioned to us when we were out is we asked if we can help. And it's not just the residents that, I've never really put that together, but it's not really just the residents that can report and relay that to the city. We asked if we could help, and she said, if you drive around and just take pictures of stuff and report it to her. So just kind of like we can do that too as well as council members. We see it, we filter it, document it, and then send it off to whoever. And it's 6 years, I've never really put that together. I mean, I've shared some stuff, but in the regard of documenting it, making sure, because she even said it, make sure you get pictures of it, document it, because we need help. So just tapping on to what you said.
Yeah, and it's frustrating. You drive around the city, and I'd say 90% of the homes are constructed well, they're maintained with downspouts and gutters, and the water flows well. And then you'll find a house that, for some reason, was built lower than all the other homes. I don't know if it sank over time or what, but it's a natural flood area. Or 14th Street just amazes me. It's lower than Wolf Creek. Who would ever build there? But then I talked to some of the people who had been there for decades, and they're like, listen, my parents built this house. They were just happy to have a roof, right? And you could walk to the factory. Like, that's a prime location, right? You look at it now and you're like, well, no one's walking to the factory. The factory may not be open. Everyone's got 2 or 3 cars, where you were lucky to have a house, let alone a car back in the day. So, there's a life cycle to neighborhoods, and we're seeing that. So trying to hit a moving target is not easy. And, not to bring up, Trushin Farm or the wetland discussion earlier tonight, but there's all these little projects that have an impact, whether it's water quality or water quantity, that we're trying to mitigate. You look at Sacramento, they just rebuilt their downtown, right? The original Sacramento was kind of underwater already, and they just rebuilt the downtown. We don't have that luxury, right? But we're trying to do everything we can, hitting a moving target. It's tough because most of the city doesn't have storm sewers. So you start putting in storm sewers everywhere, that sounds like it solves a problem. But do the existing lines, can they handle the more water that's coming in, or are you creating another issue somewhere else? So it's a moving target, a lot going on. So, any other questions? You guys want me to go on for a little longer?
Sure.
No?
If you're buying dinner.
Yeah, restaurants are closing, wrap it up.
All right, thank you guys.
Thank you, Mayor. With nothing else, this meeting is adjourned at 9 p.m.